And we are live for week 3. How we doing, everyone? It is the best day of the week, man. Football Sunday is back, and we got a great one ahead of us. Shout out to everyone already in the live stream. You guys are the real homies. Year 5 of these Sunday morning lives, week 3. Grateful for you all. Shout out to the OGs, the Walter Pick subscribers, the brand new viewers. If you guys are already in this live stream right now, smash the like button. Hit the you probably already subscribed, but hit the like button on the live does help a ton. As always, we're gonna go game by game to kick off the live. I got the DraftKings lineup ready to go. Weatherman Sam is ready to go today as well. A ton to get through today. Let me the right microphone here. That should be a little bit better on the YouTube live. All right. We're going to start going game by game here first. And we're going to kick it off with the battle of the backup QBs, a game between the Minnesota Vikings and the Cincinnati Bengals. A ton to go over, really, in this game. We got Carson Wentz and Jake Browning in this one. Is Carson Wentz better than J.J. McCarthy for the Minnesota Vikings? That is one of my biggest questions heading into this game. It feels very possible with how bad J.J. McCarthy has been. J.J. McCarthy really has had like half of a good quarter out of 8 quarters that he's played. He's obviously out with an injury in this one. He's completed under 60% of his passes. His completion rate is 31st in the NFL. I mean, if you look at this list and you see where J.J. McCarthy is on this list, it's pretty bleak. Man, wow, he's just behind Pat Mahomes, just ahead of Joe Burrow. What a weird start for those guys as well, completion percentage-wise, just ahead of Justin Fields and Cam Ward this season in terms of completion percentage for J.J. McCarthy, and in multiple plays just missing outright wide open players. We'll see if Carson Wentz is an improvement. Definitely not a guarantee, but it is possible. Other note here, Aaron Jones is out. I mean, Jordan Mason projects as a RB1 this week. Really good matchup here for Jordan Mason. One of these situations where we just know Jordan Mason's getting the ball at least 20 times today, and he's getting a matchup against a Bengals defense that's allowed the second most points per game to running backs this season. Dylan Sampson went over 15 points. Travis Etienne went over 15 points. Bajal Tootin went over 15 points. We're going to talk about this Jaguars backfield when we get to that game, but really good spot here for Mason. The rushing role should be really strong. I think the receiving role will be the best we've seen from Mason. That was the role Aaron Jones was really taking on in this backfield. His over-under today is around 100 total yards, and I think that's a pretty fair line for him. Justin Jefferson still top 5 wide receiver, even with Carson Wentz starting. We've talked about this in the past on these live streams. Of all the receivers, there's only a handful you can confidently say are quarterback proof, are matchup proof, and Justin Jefferson is definitely in that list. Have no fear about Justin Jefferson today at all. On the other side of this game, the Vikings, I believe, are actually favored in this spot. Let me pull up the spread here. I believe they're 1.5 point favorites, or 5.5. They opened as 5.5 point favorites. Now they're 2.5 point favorites. Vikings 2.5 point favorites at home here against Jake Browning. And we've seen Jake Browning before. This is definitely the biggest injury news from last week. Joe Burrow basically out the whole season. They said he's out at least 3 months. That's the whole fantasy season, guys. You can drop Joe Burrow. I mean, it's rough out here. If you had Joe Burrow, it's rough. If you're like me and you have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase out there on teams, on one team, I have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I mean, it's pretty bleak right now, but these are guys that are still going to be startable in fantasy. Jamar Chase still projects as a top 10 receiver. But on top of the shift from Joe Burrow to Jake Browning, we also have just a really, really tough matchup here for the receivers. The Vikings rank 3rd best against wide receivers this season. They've allowed, I think, the 3rd fewest catches and yards. Yeah, they're 7th in fewest receptions, 3rd in fewest yards. Only 100 total yards per game allowed to the Bears and Falcons receivers this season with the Minnesota Vikings. And their run defense has been pretty bad. So this could be a game where they lean pretty heavily on Chase Brown. I'm still starting Jamar Chase. You can still start T. Higgins. I expect some difficult T. Higgins, Jamar Chase sits today. Some difficult T. Higgins sits today. Jamar Chase, I think, is a must start still. So Chase Brown really has to be started. He ranks as RB5. Chase Brown versus Jordan Mason. We got Chase Brown ranked just ahead. I think it's pretty close. I think it'll be pretty close between these two guys, but both guys must starts. All right, I think I covered the gist of it here. JJ or Mason over total yards, Justin Jefferson or Jordan Mason over total yards. A recommendation from the comment section. I do look at all the comments, guys. I'm going to get to so many comments on this live stream. Let me put up the tight end ranks. Yeah, I got you. I'll put up the rankings here. Thanks for the reminder there in the comments. Like I said, I'm looking at the comments throughout the whole live, and I got you. And one comment last week said, "Can we get your favorite player prop for every single game in your game-by-game breakdown?" And I got you with that today. I have my favorite player prop in every single game. And I think if I had to choose between one of these two, I think I'd go Justin Jefferson over receiving yards instead of the Mason yards, like I mentioned earlier. I think that around 100 total yards for Mason, it's a pretty well-set line. The Justin Jefferson line, I think, is in the low 70s, 72 and a half. Over 72 and a half yards, I think I would take that. Is JSN playing? Yeah, I do think JSN will be playing. Pull up the wide receiver ranks here on the TikTok live. If you're watching live on TikTok, guys, we're also live on YouTube. YouTube is a better viewing experience. It's just better. I can share my screen on the YouTube live. I can't do that on TikTok. Link to that's right in the TikTok bio. But shout out to everyone already in this live stream. We're just getting started. All right, I do think the Vikings take this one, and I'm a little nervous about Jake Browning in this specific matchup. Less nervous about him rest of season. And in Superflex, I think he's going to be startable for most of the season here with, really, really good supporting cast, obviously, for Jake Browning. All right, let's get to the next game here. The Steelers versus the Patriots. Really sneaky shootout potential in this game. These are two really, really bad defenses so far this season. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they're allowing the fourth most points per game to quarterbacks. Justin Fields absolutely shredded them in week 1 and then looked abysmal in week 2. And then last week, Sam Darnold goes for 295 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, completes 67% of his passes. They're allowing 9.3 yards per attempt. That's fifth worst in the NFL. The Steelers defense is not good. They look slow and just really incapable in both their matchups against Justin Fields and Sam Darnold. I mean, Derek May is the best quarterback that they have likely played this season. But on the other side of the game, I mean, the Patriots defense also looks absolutely terrible. So I like starting Drake May. We'll talk about the running backs here in a second. There's not an easy start for the Patriots outside of Drake May. And even Drake May in some spots, there's some other good quarterbacks this week. Trevion Henderson still projects just ahead of Ramondre Stevenson in the Walter Pick app right now. This is PPR format. In a non-PPR league, he definitely won't project ahead. We're going to have Seth on the live stream in a couple of hours, and hopefully he'll talk me out of Trevion Henderson like Avery tried to do last week. But I'll talk about that here in a second. But let me just go to the Steelers side of this game first. The Steelers are at New England in this game, and they're favored by 1.5 points. And that's because the Patriots defense has been one of the worst in the NFL. Tua completed almost 90% of his passes versus the Patriots last week. They're without Christian Gonzalez again in this matchup. I think Tua had 5 incompletions. Yeah, 6 incompletions on 32 attempts for Tua last week. 81% completion percentage for Tua. Geno cooked them for 362 yards. Now back-to-back games for the Patriots where they allowed over 300 total yards. They might be the only defense where that's been the case because there's only a handful of guys that went over 300 yards in week 1. And yeah, the Pats are allowing the most passing yards per game to quarterbacks this season. And Aaron Rodgers, did look good in week 1, took a little bit of a step back. Last week, fantasy-wise at least, only 12 points, 203 yards and a touchdown after cooking the Jets for 4 TDs in week 1. But it's not like the run defense is about slightly above average, I would say, for the Patriots. They rank 18th in points per game allowed to running backs. But they've actually been okay efficiency-wise, I believe. Yeah, they've allowed a bunch of catches, the third most receiving yards to running backs, and a touchdown in the receiving game. But yeah, only 3.4 yards per carry allowed to running backs for the Pats. So they've actually been okay stopping the run. They've been cooked out of the backfield receiving-wise. They just can't stop the pass at all. Jaylen Warren should have a pretty good receiving role today. He's definitely startable. Jonnu Smith revenge game in this spot as well. I think the Patriots can take this one. They're 1.5-point underdogs at home. The Steelers defense seems just as bad as the Patriots defense. I got a little bit more faith in the Pats offense than I do the Steelers offense. DK Metcalf definitely a must start, though, this week with how bad the secondary is. No Christian Gonzalez again for the Patriots. I don't know how you don't start DK Metcalf in this spot. I know it's been a little unexciting for him to start the season. He had 80 yards in week 1, didn't score. Last week he had 20 yards, did score in the revenge game versus the Seahawks. But yeah, he's going to be the leading receiver on this team this season, and he's probably going to exploit this Patriots secondary. I mean, this Pat secondary has stopped literally nobody this whole season. All right, I do want to touch on the Patriots running backs here quick. Let me go to the running back ranks for the week on both live streams. We're live on TikTok and YouTube right now, guys. If you're watching live on TikTok, I am telling you, it is a better viewing experience on YouTube. If you're watching live on YouTube, smash the like button. And if you're watching live on TikTok, you can just search Walter Picks on YouTube or go to the TikTok bio to find the YouTube live. You'll hear the same stuff, obviously, on both lives. And I will get to comments on both lives once I finish the game-by-game breakdown. TreVeyon Henderson is a really tough start this week. I still think he's startable in some spots. But, man, I'm kind of capitulating on TreVeyon Henderson, at least in the start-sit decisions. We're going to talk about a ton of the rookie running backs on the live today. I do want to zoom out for a second and talk about the rookie running back situation because there is so much panic in the fantasy football streets about these rookie running backs. People panicking about TreVeyon Henderson, people panicking about Ashton Genty, people panicking about Amarian Hampton and RJ Harvey. I still think this might be one of the greatest running back classes of all time. I'm not backing off of that take. I had that take before the season. I think we got to be patient with these rookie running backs, and you got to separate out the start-sit frustrations and decisions from the rest of season dynamic and holding these guys to actually win leagues. Guys, fantasy football leagues are won in the fantasy football playoffs. That's when the leagues are won. I'm not trading away any of these rookie running backs. I'm trying to buy low on as many of them as I can. Several of these rookie running backs that are disappointing right now are going to win leagues. And TreVeyon Henderson's near the top of the list in my mind. Him and Amarian Hampton, two really great buy lows right now. Two guys that are pretty sketchy to start this week. TreVeyon Henderson had 2 holdings in the second half last week in a really good matchup. He finishes with 10 rushing yards, only 2 catches. But he still played about a third of the snaps. Not a terrible matchup for him. I mean, it's a desperation flex play. I don't really feel great about Ramondre Stevenson either, even though he played great. Last week, 21 points. He had 5 catches for 88 yards, had a big receiving, one big receiving play that was meant to go to TreVeyon Henderson, but he's also only getting, less than 40% of the carries. Antonio Gibson mixed in last week too. That's like super concerning, I think, for both guys. I'd prefer to bench both running backs, but I think both can be started, in a pinch. I'm sure we'll get some start sits for these guys. Also, RIP Caleb Johnson. We'll see if he's even active today because they said he's not going to be returning kicks anymore. Likely to be inactive, Caleb Johnson. I mean, really, really rough. Caleb Johnson is droppable in fantasy. I still think he has a ceiling. I still liked him as a prospect, but man, I mean, a really rough runner. I think he's negative yards this season. Yeah, negative 1 rushing yards and lost the game last week because of a poor special teams play. I mean, really rough for Caleb Johnson. RIP to him. All right, let's go to the next game here. I think the Pats take this one. Also, I didn't have a favorite prop in this one. I take DK Metcalf's yards. I think he's at 62.5 receiving yards. Tyreek cooked them for over 100 yards last week. I think DK Metcalf goes over 100 yards this week against the Patriots in this matchup. So I like that prop in this game. People ask me, why is Achane not on the rankings list? Why is James Cook not on the ranking list? These are the rankings for the rest of the week. We're locked in to start-sit decisions and decisions for today and tomorrow. That's what this live's all about, man. I'll talk a little bit about rest of the season like I just did with those rookie running backs. But yeah, the rankings here, these are the rankings for today and tomorrow. That's what people are tuning in for. That's what this live's about. Obviously, James Cook and Achane would be on these rankings otherwise. All right, on to the next game here. Let's go to the Colts versus the Titans. Is Daniel Jones here in 2025 a top 5 fantasy football quarterback? I mean, this is a legit question, guys. He ranks as QB6 this week. He's QB2 on the season. Back-to-back games over 22 points, one of which last week was against the Denver Broncos. Finishes as QB5. Passes for over 300 yards against the Denver Broncos. And honestly, I'm a little mad at myself for not being more in on this. I did mention Daniel Jones in the draft guide as a late-round QB target because he checked the late-round QB target checkboxes, which is runs. That's basically it. That's the one checkbox. He checked that box. He does run. And he was in a good surrounding environment. I had both him and Anthony Richardson on the late-round targets of the draft guide. This is why the late-round QB strategy makes a lot of sense. You can just wait till the last round, draft Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, drop whichever one's not playing, and then you just find guys on the waiver wire if it doesn't work out. And sometimes it does work out. Daniel Jones is like a must-start every week. He's got 2 tough matchups coming up too, and he still projects as a top 10 QB right now. And I mean, the surrounding environment for Daniel Jones is just one of the best in the NFL. I mean, he has a group of talented receivers, not the most talented, but as a collective group, Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL. He's averaging over 20 yards per reception again this season. And Adonai Mitchell, probably one of the better wide receiver fours in the league. They get Tyler Warren, who has instantly been the best receiver on the team. And then Jonathan Taylor, obviously, as well, in a good offensive line, and a good scheme, and a good play calling, and a good scheme. I mean, everything surrounding Daniel Jones is the best it's been in his whole career. So, yeah, he probably is on the borderline of a top 5 QB in fantasy right now. And he's really tough to bench. There's really only a handful of guys I would bench Daniel Jones for this week. Let me pull up the QB ranks. That the guys we have projected ahead of him right now in the Walter Picks app rankings, it's a short list. Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Pat Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, end of list. That's it. We got him over Jared Goff in a shootout potentially against the Ravens. That one's close. Drake May projects behind Daniel Jones, Caleb Williams, Baker Mayfield. The list goes on and on of guys that we have ranked behind Daniel Jones right now. I mean, you kind of have to start him after last week against the Broncos. Calvin Ridley, I do think is startable this week. I know he's been disappointing so far. Going to the Titans side of this game, the Colts are pretty big favorites here. The Indianapolis Colts are 4.5 point favorites in Tennessee in this one after beating the Broncos, which, by the way, they really shouldn't have beaten the Broncos. I mean, they got a bit lucky there where they got a penalty on the kick and they got to re-kick at the end of the game. It was a good win, obviously, for the Colts, but I think that stuff can get lost as the season goes on at times. We look back, we say, oh, yeah, the Colts beat the Broncos, but it easily could have been a loss there to the Broncos. Tony Pollard, it's impossible for Tony Pollard not to project well. His role is one of the best in the NFL. He hasn't scored yet. The Titans haven't been able to score many points just in general. He's got the 6th most rushing yards per game in the NFL so far this season. I know is it early in the season? It goes Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne, Derrick Henry, James Cook, Bijan, then Tony Pollard. I mean, he's ahead of Javonte Williams and Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley in rushing yards right now. And it's because he's really not coming off the field. He's number 1 in snap percentage this season. No running back has a higher snap percentage than Tony Pollard. We talked about the snap percentages for some of these elite running backs seeming kind of high. After week 1, it was a small sample. It's come down a little bit, but still, we have 14 different running backs playing over 70% of the snaps in the NFL right now. I mean, it's way higher than last season. Again, small sample size still, but Tony Pollard leads the way by far at 90% of the snaps. And he's the only running back really touching the ball. He's got an 81% rush share. He only has, 1 catch this season? Like, that is really, really surprising to me. This might be a Cam Ward thing. It has me pretty concerned for Tajay Spears when he comes back too. That is very surprising to me. 1 catch for 29 yards too. He did well with the 1 catch, Tony Pollard. But he's going to score eventually with this role. He's got 2 more games at least without Tajay Spears. You kind of have to start him if you have Tony Pollard. He projects extremely well. My favorite prop in this game is the Calvin Ridley prop. I think that the role for Ridley, what we expected the role to be heading into the season, I still have some confidence in that. He's only had 3.5 catches, 42 yards per game so far, but he's the clear wide receiver 1 in terms of playing time. Imanor, I think, is like extremely, extremely underrated right now. You don't see what Alec Imanor has done as a rookie to open a rookie career in the first 2 games of his career. You don't see that type of production and efficiency in playing time very often. And when you do see it, almost always these guys end up being legit fantasy contributors, legit NFL wide receivers. So I got confidence in Alec Imanor. He reminds me a ton of Eric Decker. Like, just going to be like all he's going to do is score touchdowns, just be an elite X receiver, I think, for the Titans long term. But I still think Calvin Ridley is the guy I prefer this week, rest of season, over him. Only a 50% catch rate in both games, but really tough matchups against the Broncos and the Rams. I think it'll start to open up for Ridley here in this one. My favorite prop in this game is Calvin Ridley over 52.5 receiving yards. This is the type of player that can beat this in a single play, in a single quarter, in a single half. All right, let's get to the next game here. I do like the Colts to win this one, but I think that the Titans definitely can cover the spread here. All right, let's go to the next game. You got Dalton Kincaid in your tight end rankings. Oop, that was a mistake. Take him out. Shout out to the comments. I'm always looking at the comments. You guys are extremely, extremely helpful. All right, let's go to pull up the tight end ranks here again. Yeah, I had Kincaid here on the TikTok live too. Won't be able to change that one. All right, let's get to the next game of the Texans and the Jaguars. The Jaguars lead the NFL in rushing right now. Not a statement I thought I'd be saying at all this season. We'll see if it sticks, but they have another good matchup here. And like part of the reason I'm a little skeptical it's going to stick is the schedule to open the season has been really, really promising. I mean, really easy for them. They played the Panthers in week 1 and then the Bengals in week 2. And now they get the Texans in week 3. They've been really bad against the run as well. Their secondary has definitely been the strong suit. Kyron Williams, Bucky Irving, Rachaad White all went for over 60 yards. They're allowing over 100 total yards and a touchdown per game to running backs this season. They rank in the bottom 10 in fantasy points allowed to running backs this season. And now they get the Jaguars, who lead the NFL in rushing. Travis Etienne, he projects worse than I would expect, given how good he's been, the matchup. But Tootin is playing. And LaQuint Allen is also playing a role. I feel okay starting Travis Etienne, though. I think I'm a little higher on him than we have in the ranks right now. I'll pull up the running back ranks again here for both live streams. He hasn't gotten over 60% route participation yet. LaQuint Allen's playing a lot of those third down plays as well. He's at right around 50% of the rush share. I mean, it's a three-way backfield. It's really like a 1A, 1B, and then like a 3. Etienne's the 1A, Tootin's the 1B, and LaQuint Allen's a 3. LaQuint Allen is a bit of an annoyance, I think, for fantasy for Etienne and Tootin. But I am all aboard, guys, the toot train. You guys got to hop aboard the toot train for sure. I don't think there's like a higher upside guy to have on your team right now than Bashal Tootin when it comes to the rookie landscape. This is another guy to feel really bullish on the rookie class so far. I think him and Quinshaw Judkins both stand out as ascending, and Scatabo as well, who we'll talk about, ascending rookie players. He only had 25% of the snaps last week. That was up without his first game without Tank Bigsby. And he rips off a really good receiving play. He ends with 2 catches, 32 yards, and a touchdown, plus 42 rushing yards. His first fantasy game over 15 points. We're going to see more games over 15 points for Bashal Tootin. He's a tough start sit because he also is definitely going to be capable of under 5 points with Etienne stealing the bulk of the role. But if Etienne misses any time, Tootin's going to absolutely smash. And Etienne doesn't necessarily need to miss time for Tootin to have big games. We just saw that last week. So yeah, I'm all aboard the 2-2 train for sure. He reminds me, honestly, a lot of Chris Johnson. This guy has 100th percentile speed, and he's a good receiving back. Travis Hunter is a pretty difficult start this week. I expect a decent amount of Travis Hunter start sits. We've had a ton of Travis Hunter start sits already. He plays more cornerback last week. We were right about the Travis Hunter report that we talked about on Sunday Morning Live last week. They said he's going to play more defense. Well, does that mean he's going to play less offense, or just that he's going to play more defense? My understanding of it was that he was just going to play more defense and the same amount of offense. And that's basically what ended up happening. He plays right around the same amount of snaps. He actually ran 2 more routes in week 2 than in week 1. His route participation was down a little bit, but yeah, still had 6 targets, just didn't do much with them. 3 catches, 22 yards. And the big problem for Travis Hunter is the air yards are just not there. 30 air yards on 6 targets. I mean, his average depth of target is just extremely low. They're giving him these really easy short passes. So if he's not creating after the catch, he's just not going to have big games. People panicking about Brian Thomas Jr. I do not get the Brian Thomas Jr. panic. Players can have bad games. I feel like sometimes we overanalyze things. I'm definitely guilty of this often as well. But can a guy just have a bad game sometimes and still be okay? Like, I feel very confident in Brian Thomas Jr. this week, rest of the season. Definitely a guy I've been trying to buy the panic on in my leagues. He had a 30% target share. Last week, he's back-to-back games over 24% target share. He's clearly the best receiver on the team. He had how many red zone targets last week? 3 red zone targets, 2 end zone targets. He had a bad game. Not a bad matchup, a terrible matchup here. Stingley did do pretty well against Mike Evans last week, but Evans still had a decent amount of targets in that one. I'm starting Brian Thomas Jr. still this week. I don't know how you bench Brian Thomas Jr. right now. Brenton Strange, a bit of a disappointment for me so far this season. I was in on Strange season. The role did grow last week, 90% of the snaps, but he has not even hit a 15% target share this season. There's a lot of tight ends I'd prefer right now over Brenton Strange. On the Texans side of this game, I don't think you can really trust anyone but Nico Collins. I don't really know how you trust anyone but Nico Collins. I think Nico projects honestly a little too low in the ranks Right now, if I switch over to the wide receiver ranks here, I would personally have him, I think, ahead of Brian Thomas Jr. I think I would play Nico Collins over Devontae Adams and Rome Odunze. I'd probably put him in that one tier above. He had a 39% target share last week, almost half the air yards. Christian Kirk's going to be back for the Texans this week. I don't think that's going to impact Nico Collins really at all. The Jaguars haven't been amazing in the secondary this season. Jamar Chase had 37 points against them last week. That was a lot, like half of that was with Jake Browning, maybe more than half was with Browning. T. Higgins had 14 as well. To me, the floor for Nico today is what T. Higgins did last week, 14 points. At least 356 and a touchdown for T. Or sorry, for Nico, which is what T. Higgins did last week. I feel very, very comfortable starting Nico Collins still. Nick Chubb is really not a guy I feel great starting. He's, I assume, going to be in some start-sit questions today because he had 15 points last week. He's looked, better than he did last season. He's at 4.1 yards per carry. But yeah, he doesn't really have like a real receiving role. He's run 14 routes this whole season. I still have like pretty big concerns about the offensive line here as well. He's just a touchdown dependent back, not a guy I feel great about in PPR leagues. I'd rather start TreVeyon Henderson over him still, I think. All right, that's the Texans Jaguars game. I would take the Jags in this one. I think the Texans are favored here. They're 1.5 point underdogs in Jacksonville. Yeah, I feel decent about that. And yeah, my favorite prop in this one is the Nico over 5.5 receptions. All right, on to the next one. Mike is static. You got mic issues? Chat, let me know if the mic is okay. Appreciate you, Glenn. All right, let's get to the next game here. Mike is fine. Thanks, Hunter. All right, we got the Falcons versus the Panthers up next. This one is an exciting one for the Falcons rushing attack. I mean, over under 200 yards for the Falcons rushing attack today. I think that's a fair question to ask, combined between Bijan and Tyler Algier. This is a dream spot for Bijan. We've seen them. This is a divisional match. We've seen Bijan go up against this defense plenty of times, and we've seen the result. They've been a bit better this season, specifically last week. But last week was a very weird game for the Panthers, where the Cardinals didn't have the ball a ton, didn't run a lot of plays, and still came out with the win. And the Panthers just had the ball a lot. I think they ran over 50. I think Bryce Young attempted over 50 passes last week. So a bit misleading here with James Conner and Trey Benson lines. They only had, what was the volume here for them? They only had, 14 carries combined. We're probably going to see 25 plus, 30 plus carries combined here for Bijan and Tyler Algier. Tyler Algier has at least 10 carries in both games so far this season, and Bijan is still smashing. He's the wide receiver 4 in points per game this season. I still want to trust Drake London in this spot. He ranks as wide receiver 17. The Panthers have been pretty good against receivers this season, allowing the second fewest points, partially because they're so bad against running backs that teams can just run against them. We haven't seen a receiver go over 10 points, though, against this Panthers defense yet. That includes Marvin Harrison Jr., Brian Thomas, Travis Hunter. None of these guys have gone over 10 points yet against the Carolina Panthers. So definitely a tough matchup, but I still think you kind of have to start Drake London. In most situations, you still kind of have to start Drake London. I still have confidence in him. He's coming off a bad game, 5.9 points. It was his first game, I think out of 5 games now with Michael Penix, that he went under a 30% target share. He's still a 19% target share. The Falcons didn't have to throw very often last week. Could be the case again, but yeah, I still think you kind of have to start London with the touchdown upside. The Falcons defense ranks as defense 3, definitely solid defense as well here. My favorite prop in this game is the Tyler Algier rushing line. I think the Falcons could really destroy the Panthers in this one. It already feels like Bryce Young is teetering. And if that happens, Tyler Algier is getting, again, at least 10 carries in this game. He's had 10 carries. He had 16 carries last week. I mean, they're really mixing him in pretty effectively, and he's been good. He had 76 rushing yards and a touchdown last week. One of the better backups in the league. On the Panther side of this game, really the only guy I feel comfortable starting is Tet McMillan, and I want to start Tet McMillan this week. Bro, where's Tyreek? Bro, this is this week's matchups. The rest of this week's rankings. So no Dolphins, no Bills players on here. I accidentally put Kincaid on the tight end rankings on TikTok. I apologize for that. You guys are already tuned into this live, by the way. We're just getting started. Smash the like button if you're watching live on YouTube. It takes 2 seconds. I'm telling you, it helps me out way more than you would possibly realize. Helps the live out a ton. If you're watching live on TikTok, guys, smash the follow button and then come to the YouTube live. The link is right in the TikTok bio. The YouTube live is a better viewing experience because I can share my screen. I can pull up comments on screen. I'll get to tons of comments on both lives though here coming up momentarily. Yeah, so for the Panthers, I feel pretty good about Ted McMillan. His prop lines are in the 60s already. He's gone over that both games. I mean, he's the clear alpha wide receiver 1 on this team. He hasn't scored a touchdown yet, and he's gone over 10 points in both games. He had 16 points last week without a touchdown. These are the types of guys you want in fantasy football that can put up 15 points with no touchdowns, and then when they score, they're going over 20, 25 plus points. And Ted McMillan's going to be a good touchdown scorer. Really underrated after the catch. We've already seen that show up. He's 10th in the league in yards after the catch among receivers this season. It's Zay Flowers, Jamar Chase, Debo, Jacoby Puka, DK Metcalf, Troy Franklin, Wandale, Juwan Jennings, and then it's Ted. He's ahead of CeeDee Lamb, ahead of Jackson Smith and Jigba in terms of yards after the catch per game. Small sample still, but this is a receiver that was really, really effective after the catch in college as well. I feel like people didn't quite realize that coming in because he's a bigger bodied receiver, but he can really make plays after the catch. 2 yards per run in his first 2 NFL games, despite a teetering Bryce Young. I mean, I feel pretty safe with Ted McMillan this week. And on top of that, the top corner, AJ Terrell for the Falcons, he's out today. So another reason to be confident about Ted McMillan. Bryce Young, I have no confidence in, though, at the same time. So these are 2 competing takes for me. I have no faith in Bryce Young. I do have confidence in Ted McMillan. Obviously, we can see that happen in fantasy. And Bryce Young actually played well for fantasy last week, 22 points, 328 yards, and 3 TDs. But he threw the ball 55 times. This is not what the Panthers are trying to do on offense. It's a really weird game environment with how it shook out. I believe an onside kick at the end of the game. The game should have ended like 20 pass attempts earlier than it ended up ending for Bryce Young. And he still is at 5.4 yards per attempt this season. That's 31st in the NFL. The only QB with a lower yards per attempt is Spencer Rattler. Just unable to push the ball downfield. And this is not an easy matchup, even with AJ Terrell out. Bless you. Thank you. Even with AJ Terrell out, not the easiest matchup for Bryce Young. This Falcons defense did look good against the Vikings. And JJ McCarthy also looked bad. But yeah, we could see a similar thing here for Bryce. I'm definitely nervous about Bryce Young right now. Chuba Hubbard's startable, but not a guy I feel great starting. He ranks as a back-end RB2. Let's go back to the running back ranks here. Actually, we'll go to the receivers because I think there's a lot of tough receiver decisions. This week, I got the receiver ranks up on YouTube already, so I'll pull up the running back ranks. But to me, the toughest start sits of the week, they're at the wide receiver position. So many difficult wide receiver start sits. We're going to get to them coming up on the live momentarily. Once we get through the games, I got the DraftKings lineup for you guys. I got my free player props. I'm giving out my favorite prop in each game, but I'll have the official free player props live that I'm taking myself that I'll track throughout the year. Those will be after the games here as well. All right, we got the Rams versus Eagles up next. This is a playoff rematch. And my main take here for the Eagles right now, they're going to have to throw at some point. They're going to have to throw at some point, and I think that point is going to be this week. The Rams would have beaten the Eagles in the playoffs last year. The Eagles would not have even made the Super Bowl had this happened if that game just wasn't snowing. If it's just a normal weather condition game, the Rams they played a really competitive game against the Eagles in the playoffs, and they really outplayed them. They just could not stop Saquon in the snow. The Rams ranked number 1 against running backs so far this season in terms of fantasy points allowed. I still don't think they're going to stop Saquon. They played the Texans and the Titans, nowhere near what they're about to face with Saquon Barkley, and they allowed 92 rushing yards to Tony Pollard nonetheless. Saquon still locked in as a top 5 running back option, could easily be the running back 1 this week. I think had over 200 total yards versus the Rams. If we go back to last year in this matchup, and I think it's a little flawed to look at the playoff matchup and try to project forward because that game, the weather in that game was really wild with the snow. Yeah, 205 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, plus 27 receiving yards. He had 232 yards versus the Rams in the playoffs last year. He played 90% of snaps in that game. He had 26 carries and 4 targets for 232 yards and 2 touchdowns. Man. But if the Rams are able to push the Eagles offense in this one, I mean, they're going to have to throw at some point. Guys, last year, if you look back at the last decade, the Eagles were a historically low pass volume offense. And this year, their pass volume is under last year. I mean, it's really wild. There's no way that they go through the season averaging only 23 pass attempts per game. I believe this would be a historic low in the last 25, 30 years. I don't think we've seen an offense average just 23 pass attempts per game. And this, the real reason here too, that this is going to regress, if they're just in close games, this offense can throw. They have really good passing weapons. Jalen Hurts has shown to be a capable passer when asked upon. They just haven't really needed to throw. And they're not going to force it. They're going to need to be pushed offensively to throw. And when it happens, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are going to be good options. Saquon's still going to be a good option as well. Dallas Goedert's back in this game. And I think the Rams defense is good. One of the better defenses in the league. I think these numbers, though, are a little misleading, again, because they played C.J. Stroud and Cam Ward, the Texans and the Titans. 2 rough offensive lines and uninspiring offenses kind of just in general. So, yeah, I'm not buying into the low pass volume being sticky here for the Eagles. And then for the Rams, I have Higbee here over 2.5 receptions as my favorite prop in this game. Higbee did really well in that playoff game despite the snow. And the role for Higbee actually grew a lot last week, too. A little bit surprising. I thought the rookie would get more involved. The rookie tight end for the Rams would get more involved than he's been. I think he actually had maybe his first snaps last week. Terrence Ferguson played his first snap last week. I don't think he played. Yeah, he played 4 snaps, didn't get a single target. This is a guy that Sean McVay was comparing to Travis Kelce at the NFL draft. Only 22 years old, though. Now, I think he'll grow into a real role over time, but it seems like this season might not happen. And Tyler Higbee's playing more. Tyler Higbee led this team in receiving in the playoffs, I believe. He had 7 catches for 54 yards and a touchdown on 81% of the snaps in the snow against the Eagles in the playoffs. Definitely think he can get over 2.5 catches here with this line. He had 4 catches, 37 yards last week. Huge bump in snap percentage as well in route participation too. So kind of a sneaky one. Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams really must starts with the roles they have with Matthew Stafford. And Kyron Williams is pretty sketchy, I would say, this week. Corum stole a rushing touchdown from him last week. That's pretty concerning. He doesn't score. He barely gets 10 points because he doesn't have much of a receiving role. He actually had 2 catches last week, didn't score, still barely got 10 points. His snap percentage was down to 70% last week. Rush share was about the same. But yeah, if Corum's going to steal touchdowns and he loses any receiving work, he's more of a back-end running back 2 than a running back 1. This is why Kyron Williams was on the do not draft list, if you listen to that. All right, on to the next one. I do think the Eagles take this one, but the Rams play a competitive game and force the Eagles to throw much more than we've seen. The Jets versus Buccaneers. This is a really another game here where we got a backup QB. Tons of backup QBs across the league. We got Carson Wentz. We talked about Jake Browning already. Here we got Ty God Taylor stealing Justin Fields' job. This is a narrative out there that I really can't believe. We've seen 1.5 games from Justin Fields. One of them was really good, and one of them was really bad. And already we're talking about Tyrod Taylor taking over the job here. I mean, so Fields is out with a concussion, to be clear. This is an injury-related start for Tyrod Taylor. The 36-year-old journeyman QB, Tyrod Taylor, is he really going to steal the job from Fields? I mean, I think almost no chance. I think even in a good game, if he plays well today, I'd be pretty surprised to see them bench Justin Fields this fast, this early. There's just nothing to lose, really, for the Jets to see what they have in Justin Fields. And he did have one really good game, too. So, yeah, I'm not buying this narrative about Tyrod Taylor, them benching Justin Fields even after he's back from the concussion. But, yeah, it's a really tough offense to trust here this week. With the Jets, maybe they'll be able to throw a little bit more. Maybe it's a J.J. McCarthy, Carson Wentz situation where they could actually take a small step forward with Tyrod Taylor. I'm not super confident in that. This is also the last week without Chris Godwin. There was a report this morning. Chris Godwin's back next week. The Bucs are also getting their starting offensive tackle back next week as well. So last week to smash Emeka Egbuka into your starting lineup. And we've talked about this all season so far. But Egbuka without Godwin in the lineup, he's playing the Godwin role in the slot. That was the wide receiver 2 in points per game last year. And he disappointed a bit last week, still scored again, though. He's got 3 touchdowns now on the season. Rome Odunze, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Quentin Johnson, and Devontae Walker out there in touchdowns. He's not going to be able to sustain this touchdown rate. Mike Evans is going to start scoring some of these touchdowns. Chris Godwin will definitely play a role here as well when he comes back. But yeah, you're starting Emeka Egbuka and Mike Evans this week here against the Jets. Bucky Irving also ranked really, really well. Rachaad White played pretty well last week too. He's like kind of a sneaky start if this game is a blowout. He had 65 rushing yards, 31% rush share, only 2 targets. I mean, a bit of a sketchy PPR start, but you could do worse. The Buccaneers are, I think, 6.5-point favorites in New York in this game. 6.5-point favorites at home in this game. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I like the Baker under 1.5 passing touchdowns here as well. The Baker Mayfield passing touchdown rate has not regressed this season. He's at 7.1% so far this season. Last year, he was at 7.2%. We almost never see quarterbacks repeat touchdown rates over 7%. It's like extremely hard to do. You see the most elite of elite quarterbacks fail to do this. I don't think he's doing it. I don't think he's going to repeat a 7% touchdown rate this season. And this is a really should be a positive game script here for the rushing attack as well. I like Baker Mayfield under 1.5 passing touchdowns a lot here in a spot versus the Jets. They allowed a 4 passing touchdown performance to Aaron Rodgers, no passing touchdowns to Josh Allen last week. I mean, I think the Bucs are going to be able to run really effectively in this spot. All right, that is the Buccaneers and Jets game. On to another game with a backup quarterback. You guys sensing the theme this week? We got the Raiders versus the Commanders here. And we got Marcus Mariota starting for the Commanders. Of all of the backup QBs, we have Mariota projected the best in the Walter Picks app right now. I think he is startable in Superflex leagues. Let's hop over to the QB ranks. I see some people asking about Tucker Kraft. We're going to get to that game. We're going to get to all the comments and the start sits, I promise. We're going to have Seth join in live later to talk me out of starting Trevion Henderson like Avery tried to do last week. We're going to get to the DraftKings lineup and the free player props as well. But first, let's talk about this Commanders offense because Mariota is going to run in this offense. And that's why he projects the best. He projects his QB 15 right now in our projections. If you go back to the last time he started some games, week 18 against the Cowboys, he had 56 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown in that game and 2 passing touchdowns. He also played the Panthers in week 7 last year, and he had 19.6 points in that game. He played the 2 worst defenses versus quarterbacks in his 2 games last year, so it's like a little bit misleading, but he's going to run. It's not like it's the scariest matchup here versus the Raiders either. They've allowed 2 straight games over 16 fantasy points. Justin Herbert at 18.8 last week, but he only threw the ball 27 times. I do think there's a real rushing role here for Mariota. Good chance at a rushing touchdown. Makes him at least startable in Superflex leagues, in my opinion. Zach Ertz still projects pretty well. All Zach Ertz does is score touchdowns, man. Back-to-back games with a TD. He's 15 points per game so far this season. That's tight end 3. He was a top 10 tight end last season too, at 34.9 years old. I prefer like a decent amount of the tight ends over him this week with Mariota starting. I would play Jake Ferguson over him. I think Harold Fannin versus Zach Ertz is super close. I like Fannin this week versus the Packers and the pressure they're going to have. I think Fannin could be in a really good role this week. That one's close, but I think you kind of have to go Ertz with how he's played. Sam Laporta, Juwan Johnson, Tyler Warren, Kelsey McBride Bowers. I'd start all those guys over Ertz. But yeah, I would start Ertz over Njoku. I'd start him over TJ Hawkinson, over Jonnu Smith this week. Let me switch to the tight end ranks here on the YouTube Live. Switch to them on the TikTok Live. If you guys are watching live on TikTok, by the way, guys, I'm telling you, come to the YouTube Live. It's a better viewing experience than the TikTok Live because I can share my screen. We're looking at Zach Ertz game logs on the screen right now on the YouTube Live. Link is right at the TikTok Live. All right, on to the next one here. Oh, we didn't talk about the Raiders. Let me jump to the Raiders really quick too, because the Genty panic is out of control. It's out of control. And I don't think Seth is going to calm the Genty panic when he comes on the live earlier, because Seth is an Ashton Genty hater. And he was right last week. He was telling people to bench Ashton Genty. We'll see if he convinces us on the live later when he joins. Genty's at 2.7 yards per carry this season. He's coming off the field on pass downs for Zamir White. He had a 37% route participation last week. I mean, that's the most concerning part for Genty. But if you just take a step back, you look at the history of running backs taken around the NFL draft where Ashton Jeanty was taken. I mean, this guy's still going to be in for a massive role this season. He's still a really strong prospect. The Chargers are a pretty good defense. We have a really small sample size here of Ashton Jeanty, and the sample size showing us his floor, I think, moving forward. 7.5 points, 12 points. This is his floor. He's got to get more involved in the receiving game, but I still think that Ashton Jeanty can win fantasy leagues, especially down the stretch. He's got matchups against the Texans and the Giants. I still think the offense is going to end up flowing through Jeanty. I still feel okay about Jeanty. He ranks as running back 15 this week. I don't know how you're benching Jeanty in most leagues, especially with the first or second round pick you spent to get him. Brock Bowers still ranks as tight end 1. He's coming off a somewhat disappointing game, only 8.8 points last week. He has a huge knee brace on. Reminds me of the huge arm brace Gronkowski used to wear. But he seems to be fine. He played most of the game. He actually had a higher snap percentage last week than the week before. Higher route participation last week than the week before. So yeah, you're starting Bowers with no worry at all. Jacoby Myers is pretty underrated right now too. He ranks in the top 20 wide receivers. He's had back-to-back good games. Hasn't scored yet, but he's averaging over 80 yards per game. His prop line is in the 60s. He's up there, prop rise with really like must-start receivers. It's tough to bench Jacoby Myers right now. Just hopping back over to the Commanders really quick. We're going to get a ton of Bill Krosky-Merritt questions today. I'm still pretty skeptical of Krosky-Merritt. I actually put him as a must bench on the TikTok live and my must bench list on the TikTok live. I think there's a lot of risk to Jacory Krosky-Merritt. He's not a guy I'm trying to smash into my starting lineup right now. We have 32 running backs ranked ahead of him, and Chris Rodriguez is going to be active. I think one of the biggest questions here with Austin Eckler out, Chris Rodriguez active. I was worried about Chris Rodriguez being the goal line back before the season. He hasn't even been active yet this season. Who's the goal line back on this team with Chris Rodriguez active? Is it Chris Rodriguez or is it Jacory Krosky-Merritt? And then is Jeremy McNichols just going to kind of step into the Austin Eckler role, or is Jacory Krosky-Merritt going to get more receiving work? I think these are all very open questions. JCM last week was down to a 22% snap percentage. He only played 15 snaps. Are we really that confident in him playing like a lot more, even with Eckler out? We have him projected right now for a 45% rush share this week. That's way ahead of what he's been at, 31% and 21%. He has 1 target in both games. He had 4 carries last week. And they got a backup QB starting. I think there's a lot of risk to Jacory Krosky-Merritt. Wouldn't be shocking to me at all if he had another similar fantasy production day to what we saw last week, which was 1.7 points. Just not a guy I want to risk in my starting lineup personally. My favorite player prop here is Terry McLaurin over 3.5 receptions. He started the season pretty slow. He had 5 catches last week. I know Mariota's starting. I still think Mariota is going to be good enough to get McLaurin 4 catches. We see this all the time with guys that hold out in training camp. They start slow. McLaurin is still one of the better receivers in the league. His snap percentage was up. Last week, he had 9 targets. I mean, he's going to lead this team in targets. 3.5 catches feels really, really low in a game that's projected to be like somewhat close with Mariota starting. Commanders 2.5 point favorites. Commanders at home against the Raiders here. So yeah, I like this going forward and won a decent amount. I think the Commanders can win this one with Mariota starting. If you guys are just joining the YouTube live, guys, smash the like button. Helps me out a ton. It takes 2 seconds, I'm telling you. Helps the live out a ton. I really do appreciate it. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button. I'm going to get to Tucker Kraft right now. I see a lot of people asking, why are we benching Tucker Kraft? Why is Tucker Kraft ranked so low? Well, he's dealing with a knee injury all of a sudden. He's going to play. I'm just cautioning a bit here with the knee injury because it seems very unlikely Tucker Kraft's role remains exactly what it's been with the knee injury he picked up this week. It's just a lot of uncertainty around the knee injury since it happened in practice. He missed Friday's practice. The knee injury happened on Thursday. He was questionable, and now he's going to be active. He's obviously smashed so far this season. He's tight end 1 in points per game. But yeah, I think there's enough good tight end options, and there's been enough options off the waiver wire. Like, I'd start Harold Fannin over Tucker Kraft this week. I would start Zach Ertz, Jake Ferguson over him. I'd start Jawan Johnson over him. I think there's just a lot more risk to Tucker Kraft than usual. The Browns have also been pretty good against tight ends. They ranked 7th best against tight ends this season. 3 catches for 21 yards. They did play the Ravens. Mark Andrews had 1 catch for 2 yards. Mark Andrews has been like unfindable this season. I mean, man, 80% of the snaps, he had 1 catch for 2 yards in a game the Ravens scored over 40 points. Wild stuff. Is the Matthew Golden breakout incoming? I think it probably is. If it's not this week, it's going to be soon. We don't have him projected great in the app right now, but Jaden Reed is out. Christian Watson's going to return at some point. Jaden Reed's probably going to be back for the fantasy playoffs. So it's tough to tell like the true ceiling story for Matthew Golden. But Golden's been missed on a couple deep throws that would definitely have changed the narrative on him so far this season. Hasn't had a game over 10% target share yet, though. Today's probably the day. He goes over 10% target share for the first time. He starts to grow in a slightly bigger role. His snaps did increase last week. Obviously, Jaden Reed did get hurt in that game. But Matthew Golden is one of the many rookies just in the tough area for fantasy. You can't drop him and you can't start him. Can't drop him, can't start him. But I still think there's a ceiling here with Matthew Golden stepping into the wide receiver 1 role with Jaden Reed out. Josh Jacobs, pretty risky this week. The Browns have been terrifying against running backs. And look no further than last week. Derrick Henry, 2.3 points. Again, this is a game the Ravens scored over 40 points against the Browns, all through the air. 23 rushing yards, didn't have a single catch. He played 60% of the snaps, did Derrick Henry, and he finished with 2.3 PPR points. That's got to be pretty scary for you if you have Josh Jacobs. He's a guy that's just so tough to bench because the role is so good. And the Packers are projected to win in this game by a decent margin. This is going to be a popular survivor pool pick. Not my survivor pool pick. We'll get to my survivor pool pick a bit later in the show. We are a 2 for 2 on the survivor pick so far, as I think most people are at this point in the season. But yeah, Packers are 7.5 point favorites in Cleveland in this one. But yeah, man, this is a really, really scary defensive line. This is one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. You kind of have to throw against the Browns because it's so tough to run against them. So he ranks as running back 17 this week. He should have a better receiving role than Henry had last week, but it's not unreasonable to be nervous about Josh Jacobs this week. And then my favorite prop in this game is Quinshaw Judkins. And for all the panic about the rookie running backs, I mean, Judkins projects, I think, the best of all the rookie running backs this week. He might actually project ahead of Genty. I think Genty projects a tiny bit ahead of him, but I was shocked how involved Quinshaw Judkins was last week. If you guys are just tuning in, by the way, guys, smash the like button on the YouTube live. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button. And guys, if you haven't checked out the Walter Picks app yet, I do not know what you're waiting for. Like if you're in a serious fantasy league, you are actively not trying to win. If you haven't downloaded the free Walter Picks app, which comes with a free 7-day trial. If you're watching live on YouTube, you can see a bunch of the features that you're going to get in the Walter Picks app that I have up on screen right now, but there's tons and tons more. Trade Analyzer. There is a Trade Finder in the Walter Picks app as well. We got weekly transaction advice. We got a DFS lineup optimizer. That's how I build my DraftKings lineup for this live every single week. And we got a super, super powerful player prop evaluator as well. All right, let's get to Judkins here because I think it is definitely a testament to the type of player Judkins is. The fact that he basically comes off the street. He practiced twice, missed all of preseason, all of training camp, all of week 1, practices twice before week 2. He gets 10 carries, almost half the carries in the offense. Plus, he gets 3 catches as well on 3 targets. Like when he was on the field, they were getting him the ball. This is a really, really strong prospect. This is something that I was trying to remind people of last week as it became clearer and clearer Judkins was going to play. Judkins, by the way, a massive L for me in fantasy because I was super high on him as a prospect and then just really concerned that he wasn't going to play all season. There was some real risk that Judkins did not play this season due to suspension, due to not signing his contract. He still might get suspended, but man, this is a really, really good player. Nick Chubb 2.0. His top player comp for us before the NFL draft was Nick Chubb. And he played the part here in his first game, 6.1 yards per carry after 2 practices. Judkins' floor, guys, is what he did last week. Just role-wise, efficiency-wise, I don't think we can say 6.1 yards per carry is his floor, but 10 carries, 3 catches, this is his floor moving forward. This is going to be a 20-touch player. Like, this could really legit be a top 24 running back in PPR leagues, top 12 running back ceiling. Judkins is startable this week. He's not a must-start, but the arrow is pointing way up after that first game. Super impressive stuff with just 2 practices. We got Harold Fandon projected a bit better than David Njoku this week. I agree with this because this Packers defense is the best defense in the league. I dropped 25% of my fab on the Packers defense in multiple leagues this week, and you might be looking at me like I'm crazy right now. But I think they're the only defense in the NFL right now that you can just start no matter what, no matter the matchup. You can start the Packers defense. It's going to be like that all season long. And also, you got to keep in mind, I'm in too many leagues. I'm in 12 fantasy leagues, guys. And half of them are high stakes leagues and the other half are not high stakes leagues. And just the peace of mind to not have to grind the waivers for defenses every single week, for me, it's pretty valuable. You know, that's time I get to buy back from my other leagues. So that's also part of the rationale here. But yeah, the Packers defense is going to be absolutely incredible this season. I think the Lions game really proved that last week after putting up 50 points against the Bears after getting shut down by the Packers there in week 1. But yeah, Harold Fannin, he's got a lower average depth of target than Njoku. He's being used as the chess piece in this offense, and they're going to have to get the ball out super quick in this game with the pressure the Packers are going to have. So I think that bodes well for Harold Fannin and a little bit worse for David Njoku. Both these guys project, though, still in the top 10 this week. But yeah, I like Harold Fannin a decent amount. My favorite prop is the Judkins over 1.5 receptions line. He had 3 catches last week, and for all those reasons I just said I liked Fannin, I think bode pretty well for Judkins too. They're going to have to get the ball out fast in this game, and that's going to bode well for Quinshon Judkins. The Lions had 14 catches against the Packers because they had to get the ball out quick too in week 1. A better offensive line than the Browns have. Eckler had 2 catches before he got hurt last week. So yeah, I like this Judkins line a decent amount. I know Ford and Sampson, they're going to mix in the receiving game, but it seems like Judkins is going to have a receiving role too. And I think he's a sneaky receiving, has sneaky receiving abilities. He played alongside Trevion Henderson in college, which just reduced his receiving role a decent amount, but he's a capable receiver. Packers, this game might get ugly here for the Browns. All right, on to the next game, Broncos versus Chargers. Let me know in the comments which rankings you want me to pull up next, by the way. I will pull them up and switch between them as we talk through. I'll pull up the receivers again because I think there's some really, really tough start sits at the receiver position. This week, Judy will probably be in some of them here as well. Doesn't have a touchdown yet this season. He is going to be startable, but not like a super exciting start at the same time. All right, on to the Broncos-Chargers game. Troy Franklin's role is growing. He's my favorite player prop in this one. He had 8 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown last week. 82% of the snaps, very notable. He ran a route in 90% of the passing plays. Evan Ingram is out this week. Evan Ingram was one of the better players I put on the do not draft list. He is definitely droppable at this point. He dealt with a calf injury, I believe, from week 1. Now he's got a back injury. Totally different injury now, knocking out Evan Ingram. That's obviously good news for the receivers and Troy Franklin here as well. 40% of the air yards for Troy Franklin and just straight up playing ahead of Marvin Mims. Pretty surprising with how good Mims has been in the past, how efficient Mims has been in the past. But yeah, Troy Franklin over 3.5 receptions feels pretty good here. The Chargers are going to likely be leading in this game. I mean, the Chargers look like one of the better teams in the NFL. Justin Herbert looks like a real legit MVP candidate right now. The Chargers lead the NFL in pass rate over expectation. I think they lead the NFL in pass rate also. Let me pull this up. Technically, it's the Panthers, then the Browns. Yeah, they don't lead the NFL in pass rate. They're only at 56% pass rate, but they lead the NFL in pass rate over expectation, which basically just means even in environments where most teams will be running the ball, the Chargers are still going to be over 50% of the time passing. They're passing in obvious run situations, the Chargers. They also lead the NFL in target share to wide receivers. Great news for those receivers. They have no tight ends. I actually think Tyler Conklin is out today for the Chargers as well. Just going to push even more targets to the receivers. Maybe Oronde Gladstone. Is it Gladstone? Oronde. He might not even project here for the Chargers. Let me go back to the Chargers here. Probably spelling his name wrong. Yeah, Oronde Gadsden. I said that last name totally wrong. Out of Syracuse. He was getting some hype in the preseason with Will Dissly out. Maybe he's active for the first time today, but yeah, Justin Herbert is looking like a legit MVP candidate right now. And if the pass rate over expectation sticks, I think that he's definitely live to get it. It's probably going to end up being Lamar though, if there's not enough voter fatigue this year. We'll get to the Ravens in a second. Ladd McConkey, I'm not panicking on him at all. All of the positives for this passing attack for Justin Herbert, I think bode really well for Ladd. I think he's one of the most obvious buy low candidates in fantasy football right now. Just a great buy low. Hampton and Harvey in this game, 2 rookies people are panicking on. I still think both have league winning upside, both really risky starts. I feel better about Hampton in this game than I do RJ Harvey. I think Hampton's going to be fine. I still think there's a really, really high ceiling for Hampton. Really rough one last week. He'll need 8 carries. Najee Harris got more involved. Najee Harris iced the game pretty well at the end of the game too. And we knew that Najee Harris's role was going to grow since he barely practiced in preseason, barely played in week 1. But yeah, Hampton is still like a high-end RB3 in this spot against the Broncos. The Broncos secondary got kind of picked on last week by Daniel Jones. So we'll see how they hold up against Justin Herbert. But this doesn't seem like a defense we need to just bench all passing attacks against. Pat Surtain's still a little scary, but he might match up against Quentin Johnson here, who's led the Chargers in both games in receiving. Quentin Johnson looking like one of the best ball picks this year so far through 2 games. It's 7th in points per game. Wild stuff. Not a guy I feel great starting still, but clearly there's going to be a weekly ceiling. And Keenan Allen's still startable too. Ranks as wide receiver 31. RJ Harvey really has to be benched right now with the role that he's in. I still think there's a real ceiling there. Tyler Bidet barely ranks behind him though. Tyler Bidet's snap percentage rose week over week. Just brutal stuff. His target share wasn't quite as high, but still tough. Any touches Bidet is taking is eating into Harvey. Dobbins is startable. This is a revenge game here for J.K. Dobbins as well. He's been over 14 points in both games. He's looked pretty good. See if he can hold up health-wise, which has always been the tough thing for J.K. Dobbins. I'm taking the Chargers, though, in this spot. MVP candidate Justin Herbert. All right, let's go to the next one. I already talked about Franklin being the favorite prop in that game. I'll switch to the running back ranks here on both live streams. Shout out to everybody in this live stream right now. Seriously, appreciate you all so much. The fact I get to call this a part of my job every single week is really a blessing, and I wouldn't be able to do it without all of you. Look forward to these Sunday mornings all week. It is the best day of the week. We got tons of football on our TV screens in just about 2.5 hours. We're almost through all the games now, too. We're over halfway through the game-by-game breakdowns. Tons of good games today to look forward to. All right, we went through the Broncos and Chargers. We're on to the Saints. I think, we have like 5 games left. Saints versus Seahawks up next. The Saints and Spencer Rattler versus Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks. Kenneth Walker projects unreal this week with Zach Charbonnet out. Yep, Sharp is out this week, and that is obviously huge for Kenneth Walker. The backup to Kenneth Walker today is a man by the name of George Holani. He has 3 career carries for 10 yards. I like his under on FanDuel. It was only on FanDuel that I saw this. There's a huge gap in the lines, and this is part of the reason the Walter Picks app is so powerful. Guys, I'll actually pull this up really quick. We'll see if it's moved already, just to show the YouTube live. But it was George Holani's under on FanDuel. Yeah, it looks like it's already moved. 23.5 on ESPN Bet now. Yeah, I mean, look at the range here. Now, FanDuel took it down. ESPN Bet still has it, though. They have his rushing line under 23.5. This is a guy with 3 career carries for 10 yards. Obviously, he's going to have a role today with Zach Charbonnet out, but he might get 1 carry or 0 carries in this game. Wouldn't be that shocking. An undrafted 2024 player with 3 career carries. He's a special teams player. And the rest of the books have this line at 15.5. This line shopping is so powerful in the prop evaluator. You can start a 7-day free trial for all these powerful features in the Walter Picks app. If you haven't yet, I definitely encourage you to do that. Link is in the YouTube description, in the TikTok bio. But yeah, I like this George Holani under a decent amount on books where you can find that. 22.5. That was actually 23.5 yards. There'd be he would double his all-time career yards if he is able to do that. Not saying it's impossible, obviously, but the gap in the lines makes no sense. All right, on to Cooper Kupp, who had a really brutal week 1 in a game where Jackson Smith and Jigba week 1, he had over 90% of the air yards for the Seahawks in week 1. I mean, he was the whole receiving attack in week 1. Week 2, that wasn't the case. Cooper Kupp actually had a really good week 2, had 16 fantasy points, 7 catches for 90 yards. His snap percentage was down a bit, but a 30% target share for Cooper Kupp last week. Definitely notable. Definitely a guy that is startable in some spots. An encouraging sign for him, for sure. Last week, you don't need to force him into the starting lineup this week. He projects outside the top 50 receivers for us right now. But yeah, Kenneth Walker, he's going to find his way into a lot of DraftKings lineups this week and to be extremely popular. I actually don't think I shoved him into my DraftKings lineup to try to pivot off of the high ownership there. But yeah, he projects as a top 6 running back. Wouldn't be shocking to see him be running back 1. A good matchup here versus the Saints. And he had a good game last week. Was the running back 9 last week with Zach Charbonnet playing. He only played 35% of snaps last week, guys. And Sharp had 18.8 points. He's going to be up to 70, 80% of snaps in his game. And he's going to get almost the entire backfield today in a really good matchup. So a lot of reason to be pretty excited about Kenneth Walker. Jackson Smith-Njigba ranks as wide receiver 6. Right now, he's just behind Malik Neighbors and Justin Jefferson. This is the type of receiver JSN is. He is questionable with an illness. This was reported like late yesterday. Usually guys play through this stuff. It will monitor it, of course. I think this is a late window game here as well between the Seahawks and the Saints. Yeah, this is a late window game. Like pretty much the only two big pieces of injury news to watch out for is this with JSN, but I really would be shocked if he doesn't play through an illness. But it's hard to know how bad the illness really is. And then Juwan Jennings with 49ers, we'll talk about that in a second, but we have Juwan Jennings projected out right now. That is part of the reason you're seeing Ricky Pearsall where he is in the ranks. Seahawks are 7.5-point favorites in this game. This is not my survivor pool pick, though. I wouldn't be like that shocked to see the Saints make this a close game. I would take the Saints against the spread here as well. The Saints, guys, they're playing at the fastest pace in the NFL. This is like a fun offense. This is a really good offensive environment for fantasy. Juwan Johnson projects as a top 5 tight end. Alvin Kamara projects as a top 10 receiver. Olave and Shaheed, they have at least a ceiling every week. This is a team that is running a ton of plays. And this is what Kellen Moore has always done in terms of plays per game this season. The Saints are averaging 68 plays per game. That's in the top 7 of the NFL. Kellen Moore has ranked top 5 in plays and in pace, basically every offense he's been a part of. I think Kamara, I like his receptions line a bit too. I went with the Halani under here just because that seems like it's just an unreal value to me. But yeah, Kamara had 6 catches for 21 last week. He played 86% of the snaps. He's got this entire backfield. He's in a really, really good role right now. And the Seahawks have not been great versus running backs. Their defense overall has generated a lot of pressure on QBs. But McCaffrey went for 23 points. Jalen Bourne went for 17 points. Both those guys had at least 4 catches and at least 70 receiving yards. Kamara could be in for a really, really good game today. On to the Cardinals. And I am taking the Seahawks in the game. I think the Saints will cover the spread. And they're not my survivor pool pick. Juwan Jennings, right now, we have him projected out. Jennings has not practiced this week. This is a different injury for Jennings as well than he was dealing with before. Last week, he was questionable, and it was really uncertain if he was going to play last week with a different injury. But he got a limited practice in on Friday. Juwan Jennings did not practice on Friday this week. So that's why we have him projected out. Almost always in these cases, when you don't practice on Friday, it's a really, really bad sign. It's not like a guarantee he won't play, but enough confidence for us to project him out right now and then adjust if he ends up being in. I think you should be approaching fantasy decisions right now as if Juwan Jennings is out. That's what we have projected in the Walter Picks app. That's why Ricky Pearsall is projected to absolutely smash, and Christian McCaffrey's breaking projections too. I mean, without Jennings, Kittle's already out. Ayuk obviously is not back yet. I mean, it's so hard not to project these guys in the top 10 of their position. Christian McCaffrey projects by far as the number 1 fantasy option this week. Christian McCaffrey is putting up wide receiver numbers, guys. Wide receiver numbers with Jennings in. And with Jennings out, I mean, he could be the wide receiver 1 in this team this week. It wouldn't be that crazy. He has 15 catches for 130 yards this season. 7.5 catches per game. I mean, just wild stuff here from McCaffrey. He's in one of the best roles, if not the best role in the NFL. Probably Jonathan Taylor's in the best role. In my opinion, I think we actually already talked about him a bit. 17 total targets, though, for Christian McCaffrey. We have him projected for a 25% target share today, with Juwan Jennings out. And he could easily beat that. He had a 29% target share in week 1. Obviously got a really good chance at a touchdown, too. He doesn't have a rushing touchdown yet this season. But yeah, Ricky Pearsall is an absolute smash, must start. Even if Jennings plays, you kind of have to start Pearsall. I think with the Jennings injury, he might not be 100%. But if he's out, you have to start Ricky Pearsall. We have him projected right now for a 28% target share, like well above what he's been at. But guys, where's the targets going in this offense if Jennings is out? We've seen Mac Jones lock into his top receivers historically over the last couple of seasons, this past week and last season with Brian Thomas Jr. That's probably going to end up being Ricky Pearsall this week. I thought it was going to be Ricky Pearsall last week. He actually did end up cashing his prop still last week, but it ended up being Juwan Jennings. But again, we have Jennings projected out now. Juwan Jennings had, I think it was a 30% target share last week, 26% target share last week. 10 targets for Juwan Jennings. Went for 19.9 points. The other receivers in this offense, Kendrick Bourne, who has a previous connection with Mac Jones from the Patriots. He projects as the wide receiver 2 in this offense right now. And then Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Sky Moore. This is who they're trotting out at wide receiver after really McCaffrey and Pearsall. And they got Jake Tungus at tight end without Kittle. On the other side of this game, the Cardinals, seems like a new year, same Marvin Harrison Jr. after 2 weeks. We saw the boom game week 1, just like last season. And then we saw the bust game in week 2, just like last season. Only 2 catches for 27 yards. Again, a weird game between the Panthers and the Cardinals. Cardinals just did not run a lot of plays. Only 24 routes for Marvin Harrison Jr. He still had a 20% target share, which is pretty much the same as week 1. I'm not fully panicked on Marv, but I understand some of the panic with Marvin Harrison Jr. since it's basically the exact same situation he was in last year. It's the same players, same coaching staff, same Marvin Harrison Jr., new year. He might be more boom bust than people want with where they picked him in fantasy. But you did get him later in fantasy this year than in the past, in his rookie year. And man, we need to see Trey McBride and Brock Bowers, honestly, score some touchdowns. Both these guys, the big risk with both these guys, with how early they were going in drafts, is they have never shown an ability to score touchdowns. Trey McBride is literally allergic to the end zone. Again, this year is like probably the best tight end role in the league, and 0 touchdowns on 12 catches. Scored 2 touchdowns last year. We got to see this guy score if he's going to pay off his fantasy cost. James Conner's a really risky start right now. Trey Benson has really started to grow his role already this season. He went from a 33% snap share in week 1 to a 43% snap share in week 2, and he's the primary receiving back on this team. James Conner is not the primary receiving back for the Arizona Cardinals. 61% route participation for Trey Benson last week. He had 6 targets for a 24% target share. I mean, I am trying to sell James Conner for anything I can right now in fantasy because he has scored twice. Without these 2 touchdowns, James Conner is looking like almost droppable in fantasy. And not that he won't continue to score some touchdowns, but he's over 30 years old. He's not the primary receiving back on his team. I'm not convinced he's the best running back on this team. Do not feel great about James Conner in fantasy right now. He does project still a bit better than Benson, but the gap is narrowing, and it's narrowing fast. This game has a 1.5 point favorites for the 49ers. Mac Jones is a 1.5 point favorite at home against the Arizona Cardinals. Man, I think I would take the Cardinals here against Mac Jones, but it's going to be a close game for sure. All right, we got 3 games left, 3 really fun ones. We got the Cowboys, Bears, Chiefs, Giants, Lions, Ravens, and then we will get to the DraftKings lineup, the free player props, my official free player props, even though I'm giving my favorite one in each game this week. If you guys are just jumping in the YouTube live, guys, smash the like button. It helps out a ton. It takes 2 seconds. Takes you 2 seconds. I'm telling you, it helps me out, and it helps the live out way more than you could possibly realize. I'm going to get you so many comments here momentarily. You're hopping in at a really good time. We got 3 more games to break down. Then I'm going to give you my DraftKings lineup, my free player props, and then we're going to bring Seth on the live and get to tons and tons of start-sit questions here. All right. Let me pull up the wide receiver ranks on the YouTube live. I think the wide receivers are the toughest start-sits decisions of the week. If you guys are watching live on TikTok, by the way, I'm telling you, come to the YouTube live. It's a better viewing experience. All right, let's get to this Bears-Cowboys game. This game could easily end up being the highest scoring game of the week. We didn't really talk about this with the Giants yet, since we haven't talked about the Giants game. But Caleb Williams, if he's going to break out, it's going to be here. It's got to be here. The Cowboys secondary is all sorts of banged up. I think they're missing 2 of their starters in this game. I think Diggs might have actually been questionable, Trevon Diggs, but Bland is out. We see if Trevon Diggs is confirmed out. He's added to the injury report on yesterday, with a knee injury. Never a good sign. Trevon Diggs might be out on top of a Bland being out for that's 2 starting corners for the Cowboys, who just got absolutely cooked by Russell Wilson and the New York Giants. They looked like they were making Russell Wilson look like prime Russ last week. I mean, they really turning back the clock. It was his career best passing game ever for Russell Wilson last week. That's who Caleb Williams gets and who Ben Johnson gets this week. I mean, such a get right spot for them at home. The Bears are 1.5 point underdogs at home against this defense. A 50 point over under. you want pieces of this game. I'm totally comfortable starting Caleb Williams in this game. Rome Odunze projects as a top 12 wide receiver. He's been their wide receiver 1 so far this season. We were in on that big time. If you read the draft guide, if you followed me at all before the season, one of my biggest hits so far has been Rome Odunze. There's been a lot of reports that Luther Burden and Colston Loveland are going to get more involved this week. I mean, please, why did we spend a top 12 pick on Colston Loveland to not use him? Why did we spend an early second round pick on Luther Burden to play Olamide Zaccheaus over him? And Olamide Zaccheaus has actually played fine this season. I think my favorite player prop of the week, though, guys, is this one. I really liked Luther Burden as a prospect. I think Luther Burden's an extremely underrated player right now, just across fantasy football, across the NFL. I think he should be rostered in pretty much every fantasy league. I think this guy has a really, really high ceiling. He was a strong prospect for us before the NFL draft. He had one incredible season at Missouri. This guy's got 90th percentile speed, really, really good after the catch abilities, and he's barely played. And it sounds like he's going to play more starting this week. Last week, he had 1 catch for 5 yards. He only played 17% of snaps. See, I feel pretty good about Luther Burden at least getting 10 yards today. And I actually laddered up and did some Luther Burden alt lines. Luther Burden over 25 yards, Luther Burden over 40 yards, Luther Burden over 50 yards. Guys, this is a team. If we go back to Luther Burden here for a second, this is a team that just got absolutely cooked by Wan'Dale Robinson. Guys, Luther Burden is better than Wan'Dale Robinson. He's not 6'11". Yeah, that is a typo. There's something going wrong with some of the heights here for the rookies. Wan'Dale Robinson just went for 9, 167, and 2. So that was neighbors. 8, 142, and 1. I like these Luther Burden lines a lot right now. 7.5 yards with the reports that he's going to play more. Even if he doesn't play more, he's got like a pretty fair shot at this. And if he plays more, and there's like legit plays schemed up for Luther Burden, I don't know how he doesn't go over 7.5 yards against the Cowboys secondary, missing their top 2 corners potentially. DJ Moore, I'm a bit nervous about with some of the coach speak coming out, but you do kind of have to start him in this matchup too. And then Rome Odunze, we had talked about DeAndre Swift is startable. On the Cowboy side of this game, the tight ends are not startable for the Bears. Colston Loveland should be rostered, but he's definitely not startable right now. On the other side of this game, CeeDee Lamb projects as wide receiver 2. Really fair argument, I think, to say Lamb should be wide receiver 1. I think you could definitely make that argument. The Bears secondary has also been atrocious. These are 2 really bad defenses and 2 passing offenses I still have a lot of faith in. Definitely the Cowboys passing attack. There's good reason to have a ton of faith in. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 39 points against them last week. 9 catches, 115. Jameson Williams went for 108 yards on just 2 catches. Jefferson only went for 444 and 1. But their top corner is out too. Jalen Johnson, I believe his name is. There's I think it was the Cowboys quote, but there was a quote from the Cowboys, I believe, one of their coaches saying that they're going to have to triple team CeeDee Lamb. I mean, they're probably going to double team CeeDee Lamb more than we usually see double teams. Double teams are actually extremely rare in the NFL, but if that ends up happening in this game, we could see a massive, massive game from George Pickens. I know we're going to get a ton of George Pickens start-sits today. I think one of the more difficult start-sits, in my opinion. But guys, if you're tuning into this live, you got to know I am someone who chases ceilings. I chase ceilings. I would rather start a high ceiling than a high floor in most cases. It's the way I approach life. It's the way I approach fantasy football. And that's going to make me want to start George Pickens this week in this matchup, especially with the attention CeeDee Lamb might get. He had 9 targets last week. It was only 17% target share, but 9 targets, better performance than week 1. Obviously, he went 5 for 68 in a touchdown. I think he could easily beat these numbers here against the Bears. I think we're going to see games where he goes over 20% target share. We haven't seen that yet. Jake Ferguson looks really good in this spot too. He had a huge game last week, didn't score and finishes the tight end 3. These are the guys you want in fantasy that can finish top 3 at their position without a touchdown. That was Jake Ferguson last week. 9 catches for 78 yards. Man, they threw the ball a ton in this game. Only 23% target share, but 12 targets. Garrett Wilson could never. Yeah, I like the ceiling for George Pickens. He doesn't project as good as some of these receivers, but man, the ceiling's about as high as you're going to find for some of these start-sits. So yeah, I'm probably going to be telling a lot of people to go against these rankings if you want the ceiling and go with George Pickens. George Pickens versus Wan'Dale Robinson. Guys, Wan'Dale projects better than George Pickens this week. I'm easily going George Pickens over Wan'Dale. George Pickens versus Stephon Diggs. I'm going George Pickens there over Stephon Diggs. George Pickens versus Marquise Brown. I would go George Pickens over Marquise Brown. George Pickens versus Travis Hunter. I think I would go George Pickens over Travis Hunter. These are guys that project better, but I think just don't have the same ceiling as George Pickens. Seeing someone ask for the tight end ranks, or the QB ranks, excuse me. I'll go to the QB ranks here. All right, so this is going to be a fun game for sure. And yeah, a lot of reason to expect a high passing volume here. And then I just have a note. Javonte Williams, is he the best fantasy pick so far this season? He's averaging over 22 fantasy points per game. Has looked extremely strong. Top 5 running back both weeks. I mean, this guy was basically free in fantasy drafts. In a lot of drafts, he went outside the top 10 rounds. A starting running back. I'm pretty surprised that Jaden Blue wasn't active last week. Seems like they're going to stick with Miles Sanders and Javonte, and Jaden Blue is pretty buried. He probably can be dropped. But man, I'm another good spot here for Javonte. I don't know how you bench him either. I am taking the Cowboys in this game. I have a little bit more faith in the Cowboys passing attack, but I do think we see a breakout from Caleb Williams in this one too. And I really, again, my favorite prop this week is the Luther Burden over 7.5 receiving yards. All right, on to the next game. That is the night game tonight. We only have 2 games left, and we will get to the DraftKings lineup, the official free player props. Luther Burden will be one of those, but I have multiple today. And then we will get to tons and tons and tons and tons of start-sit questions. Chiefs versus Giants. Guys, this is the survivor pick of the week. I don't know how you go anywhere else than the Chiefs. There's a few games to consider for the survivor pools this week. The Chiefs are definitely one of them. They aren't the biggest favorite of the week. The Packers are 7.5-point favorites. The Seahawks are 7.5-point favorites. We have the Buccaneers are 6.5-point favorites. Those are the 4 teams really that people will be choosing in survivor pools. It's the Chiefs versus the Giants. That's who I'm going with. It's the Seahawks versus the Saints. I think that one's a bit risky with how the Saints offense has looked. You got the Packers over the Browns. I definitely could see a case for that one. I don't feel quite as good about it, and I kind of want to save the Packers. And then you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus Ty God Taylor in the Jets. And out of just like small amount of fear that Ty God Taylor is a step forward over Justin Fields, I want to avoid that one too. The Chiefs are not going 0-3. And the Giants have really, really struggled against tight ends as well. They're missing one of their starters that guards tight ends, one of their linebackers. This is just a primetime game in New York. The 0-2 Chiefs, there's no way they lose this game. Jake Ferguson went for 9 catches to 78 yards last week versus the Giants. Like, this is the type of game, plus a touchdown we could see from Travis Kelce. He ranks as tight end 3 this week. Like, he's right there after Bowers and McBride. There's not another tight end I'd rather start this week than Travis Kelce. So he's my favorite player props in this game. I like his yards, catches, and touchdown in this game, but I probably lean towards the 2 I wrote down here, the yards and the touchdown. But yeah, I'm riding with the Chiefs here. I would be so shocked to see them go 0-3 and lose to the Giants. Just such a deflating loss for the Giants last week as well. And the Giants, they don't get to play the Cowboys defense this week. This is, legit Chiefs defense here. Kelsey's like the only guy you feel really comfortable starting, though, in this matchup. Everyone else is pretty sketchy. Marquise Brown's role took a step back last week after they actually got to game plan around not having Xavier Worthy. He played less snaps, had a way lower target share. A lot less of an exciting role for Marquise Brown. Still a ceiling, I think, for Marquise Brown, but the floor looks to be a bit sketchy. On the Giants side of the ball, we're starting Malik Neighbors, and we're excited about Scatterbo, but you can't start Scatterbo against the Chiefs. Can't do it. But yeah, definitely the arrow's pointing up for Scatterbo. The future's looking bright. But it's Neighbors, bench everybody. It's Kelsey, bench everybody, and it's take the Chiefs in your survivor pools and ride the Kelsey props in primetime. That's my opinion in this game. All right, Lions versus Ravens. Is there going to be 100 points scored in this game between the Lions and Ravens? We saw the Lions offense is maybe going to be just as good this season. It was actually the Packers defense that made us overly concerned about the Lions offense from week 1. Week 2, they go against the Bears, a bad defense, and they score over 50 points. Amon-Ra St. Brown's projecting as wide receiver 1 right now. The Ravens offense cannot be stopped. This is one of the most historically efficient offenses in NFL history. Last year, it was one of the most historically efficient offenses in NFL history. This year, no different. Lamar should have been the MVP last year. If this offense keeps it up, Lamar should be the MVP this year. This offense just literally cannot be stopped. They have an insanely efficient rushing attack. And if you stop that, well, good luck stopping the passing game at the same time. Lamar's at 9 yards per attempt this season. He's got a 12.5% touchdown rate. I mean, just ridiculous stuff. We were just talking about with Baker Mayfield. We almost never see quarterbacks go over 7% touchdown rate in back-to-back seasons. It's extremely difficult to do. Very, 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 very few quarterbacks have done it. Lamar went for an 8.8% touchdown rate last year. He's at 12.5% this year. Like, this is just not a normal player, guys. This is one of the greatest QBs in NFL history, one of the greatest offenses in NFL history. It doesn't matter what defense they're playing. They're going to be scoring 30-plus points. And that makes this game very exciting for the other side of the ball with the Lions, because they're going to be forced to push it, and they just scored 50 points against a bad defense. This is really not that scary of a defense here for the Ravens. So yeah, you want pieces of this game. Amon-Ra St. Brown obviously projects amazing. Sam Laporta hasn't had a great season so far. He had 14 points in week 1, only 5 points last week. But the Ravens have been cooked by tight ends this season. Definitely a guy I feel pretty good starting. They've allowed 8 catches for 92 yards per game. That's both second worst in the NFL to tight ends. Kincaid, all 3 tight ends on the Bills got involved. Both Fannin and Njoku got involved last week. I mean, Laporta should have a pretty good opportunity to smash this week. Jared Goff is startable. I expect some Jared Goff start sits this week. I don't think they're going to be the easiest. We have Goff just behind Daniel Jones. I mean, Goff versus Daniel Jones. What a tough start sit decision that is. I honestly think I lean Daniel Jones just because of the rushing, but man, the ceiling for Goff, in my opinion, is higher. We just saw it last week. Justin Herbert versus Goff. That's a pretty close one too. I lean Herbert there. Goff versus Drake May. I probably lean Goff over May. But yeah, some tough QB start sits in that range. My favorite player prop in this one is DeAndre Hopkins over 16.5 yards. He has 2 catches in both games. Both games he's easily beat this prop in a single catch. There was a report that came out that said they want to get him more snaps moving forward. And as the season goes on, this should be a competitive game that he's going to at least play in. He only ran 10 routes last week, but he still had 2 catches, 64 yards, and a touchdown. Yeah, I like this line a lot. If you're with me in this game being somewhat competitive, the Lions offense being legit, then Hopkins should get at least 2 catches again. That should be well more than enough for 16.5 receiving yards. All right, that is every single game. We talked about basically every single player in every single game. Just some other quick notes on the Ravens. We're obviously still starting Derrick Henry. Zay Flowers projects as a top 10 receiver right now. Isaiah Likely's out again. Zay Flowers, his target share is second highest in the league, guys. It goes Jackson Smith and Jigba, then Zay Flowers. He's ahead of Garrett Wilson, who is the only receiver on his team. Pretty surprising. I don't think he's going to finish the season over a 40% target share, but Zay Flowers is smashing right now, and definitely a guy you need to be starting right now in this matchup, and really like every game until this role changes. You're going to have to start Zay Flowers. I do think Henry bounces back. Andrews is basically unstartable right now. We talked about all the Lions players for the most part too. Jameson Williams is definitely startable. He only had 2 catches last week, 108 yards and a touchdown, 19 fantasy points. This is exactly what we thought Jameson Williams' role would be, and he's very capable of making a big play in this game. Dave Montgomery projects pretty well here too. Isaac Tesla, I think, is the most talented receiver I've ever seen on only 2 catches. Like, 2 of the most impressive catches of the season are his only 2 catches. If you haven't seen these 2 catches from Tesla, you got to go look up the catches from Tesla. They got to get this guy on the field more. I mean, he looks absolutely incredible when given the opportunity. He did play more last week, up to 29% of the snaps. Didn't really matter though for Jameson Williams. It seemed more so like it ate into the Khalif Raymond role went down a bit, which I think makes a lot of sense for the Lions. All right, that's every player in every game. Let me get to the free player props quick, then we'll get to the DraftKings lineup. Then we will get to the start, sit, comments. All right, let's get to, actually, real quick before that, Weatherman Sam, he's going to be here for you all season long. We've been locked in. Weatherman Sam's locked in. And if you're new here to this live stream, the most important thing to watch for weather is wind. Wind over 25 miles an hour. That's where we really get concerned in terms of changing fantasy decisions and changing expectations for games. We got none of that today. But there is some weather to report on. So my goal with Weatherman Sam on these live streams, I want you to be aware of weather. So you're not surprised when you turn on the TV, you're like, man, I didn't realize there's going to be absolutely pouring in this game. I wish I had known that. I want to make you aware of the weather to expect or to potentially expect. I want you to make you aware too of things that actually matter and don't matter for your decisions. I think people really overweight the weather like a lot in fantasy football when it comes to rain and snow and wind. We're not going to overreact to weather here on this live. I've done a lot of statistical analysis on weather, and I will make sure you know when we should actually be concerned. And today there's no real concern. There might be some scattered rain. None of these games are going to be raining the whole game, but there might be some scattered rain in the Colts-Titans game, the Saints-Seahawks game, the Cowboys-Bears game. I have absolutely no real rain concern at all. It does not change my opinion about these games literally at all. Just know we might see some rain in these games. There's also some wind reports in the Packers-Browns game, in the Texans-Jaguars game, 15 to 20 mile an hour wind gusts. This is not sustained wind. This is wind gusts. This is not concerning. It's not over 25 miles an hour, so we're not concerned. Sustained wind over 25 miles an hour is when you'll see me be really concerned, and I'll start moving guys way down the ranks, and we'll adjust the pass volume for these teams. Wind gusts over 25 miles an hour is like moderately concerning. But yeah, this isn't that concerning. It's noteworthy. Don't be surprised when it's like a narrative in the game. But yeah, I'm not concerned at all about any of the weather today. That's the Weatherman Sam report. I already talked about my three favorite player props when I went game by game, but these are the three official props of the live today. We went 0 for 1 last week with Brees Hall. We got to bounce back, man. We're at 61% still in the props dating back to last season. I'm locking in Troy Franklin over 3.5 receptions. George Holani. If you don't know who that is, that's exactly the point. This guy has 3 career carries for 10 yards. He's Kenneth Walker's backup today with Sharp out. And one book, or actually 2 books, it was FanDuel and ESPN Bet. I think ESPN Bet we saw actually had it at 23.5. Well, every other book has it at 15.5. I'm not convinced this guy's even getting 2 carries today. Luther Burden over 7.5 yards is my favorite one of the day. I take all of my own advice here, guys. And I mentioned I'm laddering up Luther Burden's lines too. I like him over 25 and 40 yards as well. If the reports about him getting more involved are true, very, very doable against this Cowboys secondary. We just saw Wan'Dale Robinson running deep routes successfully against the Cowboys secondary. So these are the three free player props of the day. And then the DraftKings lineup. I am stacking Dak Prescott with both his receivers, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. I'm running it back with Rome Odunze. The double stack here with the bring back in Rome Odunze. I'm getting Bijan and Jordan Mason in the lineup. I'm skipping over Kenneth Walker. He's going to be extremely high owned. I get it. But in tournaments, you want to pivot off the high ownership where you can. Jordan Mason is going to have high ownership too. So you got to pick your spot, either Jordan Mason or Kenneth Walker, in my opinion. Juwan Johnson's just way too underpriced. I don't think the ownership is going to match what it probably should be for Juwan Johnson, who's had arguably the best tight end role in the NFL. And he's playing a Seahawks defense that's allowed the most points to tight ends this season. I mean, the floor and ceiling for Juwan Johnson today are really, really strong. He's priced at $3,900 on DraftKings. I'm making a bet on the Calvin Ridley bounce back. And I'm also playing the Raiders defense, pretty cheap defense against a backup QB here in Marcus Mariota. That's the DraftKings lineup today. And with that, we are on to the start sit segment of this live. Let's go, man. Tons of good games on our TV screens coming up here momentarily. In the comments, guys, let me know what rankings you want to see next, and I will switch over to those. And we will jump to some start sits. I'm probably gonna go QBs, tight ends, like I usually do, to focus in on some of the layups before jumping into the receivers and tight ends. But I kind of want to start with the receivers today, because when I was preparing for this live, man, I think this is a really difficult start sit week at the wide receiver position. Basically from like wide receiver, call it 20 or 21. I feel pretty good about Tet. We'll call wide receiver 21 and down to like wide receiver like 40, like this range with George Pickens. Some really difficult start sits, I think, in here. I think this is a good one here between JMO and George Pickens. They're honestly, like, to me, somewhat comparable. I said earlier, I think I'm going to tell a lot of people to start George Pickens today and go against Walter. That usually doesn't always bode well for me. But yeah, I think in this spot, you go Jameson Williams. The Jameson Williams is like almost a safer version of George Pickens. There's just no way to stop this Ravens offense. The lines are going to have to push it again, passing the ball. We need to see the combo of week 1 and week 2 for Jameson Williams, and he's going to go over 25 points, right? Again, where he gets 4 catches and a couple of deep catches and a touchdown. Only a 14% target share for him through 2 games. Honestly, like really comparable guys here. If we could just compare their stats this season, go to the receiving stats here. George Pickens, 15% target share to J-Mo's 14%. That's meant more targets per game for Pickens overall by 2 because of how much the Cowboys have passed so far. But the yards per reception, easily in Jameson Williams' favor. He scored a higher touchdown rate. They both have 1 touchdown. The yards per out run's been better for Waymo J-Mo. The air yards have been better for Waymo J-Mo. This is probably the biggest reason, this air yard share, to go with Jameson Williams and the argument for his ceiling to be higher. I like both these guys' ceilings a lot this week, but yeah, I think you go Jameson Williams in this one. Pickens or Brian Thomas Jr. We're not benching Brian Thomas Jr., guys. We're not benching Brian Thomas Jr. In almost every start sit, I'm going to tell you to start Brian Thomas Jr. I would start a Dunze over him, like Devontae Adams, Zay Flowers, Ricky Pearsall. I'd be okay starting over him, I think, assuming Juwan Jennings ends up being out, but there's really, really few players I'm going to start over him. One request I have for you guys in the comments today that I think is going to my goal, the thing I'm optimizing for here on this live stream at this segment of the live. Now that we're in the start sit segment of the live, we will have Seth joining us as well for this segment coming up in like 15 minutes or so. Let me know in the comments what the Walter Picks app thinks about your start sit, so then I can give my opinion and I can save time pulling up every single start sit comparison. Because the Walter Picks app is free, guys. Doing start sit comparisons in the Walter Picks app is free. The premium features, if you're serious about fantasy or props, well worth it. Comes with a 7-day free trial too. But every single one of you can take the step to plug the start sit question into the Walter Picks app before I do it. Let me know what the app thinks, and then I'll give you my opinion about what I think. Sometimes I will disagree. And sometimes a lot of these start sit decisions come down to, do you want to chase the ceiling like I tend to do, or do you want to lock in the floor? And I'll talk through that too, of course. But yeah, let me know in the comments. I'm going to prioritize the comments that say the start sit question and then what the Walter Picks app has, which guy the Walter Picks app just has projected more for your scoring settings too. That's the other reason the Walter Picks app is even better than me at the start sit questions, especially if you don't tell me the scoring settings, because it adjusts for all your scoring settings. It syncs to your league and adjusts. So here we go, Ruben. Appreciate you following the format. Walter says Hunter here in a start 1 PPR. Ertz, Hunter, or Franklin? Oh gosh, man. You kind of have to go Hunter here, I think. I don't feel good about Travis Hunter. I don't feel great about him. I really don't feel like amazing starting a second tight end with a backup QB either. I took the Troy Franklin prop over 3.5 receptions, but yeah, I think I'm with Walter on this one. I think I would go Travis Hunter there. I see on the TikTok live, Walter thinks Jonnu over Goddard. Thoughts? Oh, yeah, it's a tough one. Let me switch to the tight end ranks here quick. We can maybe focus in on some tight end start sits right now. I do want to get to a lot of the receiver ones too, since I think there's some really tough ones today. I'll pull up the tight end rankings though on the live, and let's look at Goddard here. Goddard didn't play last week, but had a really good week 1. Yeah, 7 catches for 44 yards on a 35% target share. 35% target share is a little misleading just because there wasn't a ton of pass volume. I mentioned it earlier though. I don't think this Eagles pass volume is going to stay this low. Like it can't stay this low. This would be a historically low pass volume coming off a season where they had a historically low pass volume. Like in the last decade, this was like one of the 3 lowest pass volume seasons we've seen in the last 10 years. Last year for the Eagles. This year, they're averaging like 3 or 4 pass attempts less than last year. There's just no way that they throw this little in this amount of games. And I think it's probably going to start this week. I think the Rams will push the Eagles in this game, have a real chance to win this game. They probably would have beat the Eagles in the playoffs last year had it not been snowing. Like the Rams played the Eagles way tougher than the Chiefs did in the Super Bowl. So yeah, if Goddard's up to his 80% snap percentage, I think this is like a pretty close one. That being said, we got Jonnu Smith in the revenge game here versus the Pats. I'm not discounting that. The Pat secondary has been atrocious this season. I mean, it's tough for me to start a tight end who's like splitting time with another tight end. He only played 56% of snaps, but they are making it a point to get him the ball. It's a tough one, man. A really tough one. I think I lean towards Jonnu in the revenge game with Goddard coming off the injury. But if Goddard's at full health, which there's not a ton of reason to think he won't be, that week 1 roll was actually pretty good. I think he actually did okay too in this game in the playoffs. Again, that game was in the snow. Yeah, he did. 4 catches for 56 yards in the snow against the Rams in the playoffs. I lean Jonnu here just slightly with the injury risk for Goddard, but it's close. Definitely a close one. Monty or T. Higgins? Walter thinks Monty. Yeah, I think I go Monty there too. It's going to be super high scoring game. T. Higgins definitely a bit riskier too with definitely a bit riskier there with Jake Browning. Sam, I'm studying in muddy waters. Bryce Young, I'm in muddy waters. Bryce Young or Tyrod? I've got Garrett and Tet. Thanks, boss man. Jake, good to see you, man. Former Browns creator, hope all is well. Bryce is a guy I just refuse to start. This week, I got him. I traded him in the 32 creator league. I got Bo Nix in return in that trade. I actually traded Bryce Young and Christian McCaffrey away. I got Jonathan Taylor and Bo Nix back. Felt decent about that. I gave up Dylan Sampson as well as a depth piece there. But yeah, I got to start sit in one of my leagues, Bryce Young versus Jake Browning. Don't feel good about that. I'm trying to add Marcus Mariota in that league so I can start him instead. I think we have Bryce ahead of Tyrod Taylor. AJ Terrell being out gives me like an ounce of hope for Bryce. And Bryce did have a good fantasy game last week. 22 points was a top 10 QB, over 300 passing yards. But he threw 55 times. He's not throwing the ball 55 times today. Absolutely no chance. So yeah, I think you got to go Bryce. But it feels gross, man. It's definitely muddy waters to say the least. And I do have confidence in Tet. Definitely have confidence in Tet today. Kyron Pollard, sorry, I got to prioritize the people following the requested format here. I think I lean Pollard here, I think, over Kyron and Debo. But again, I'm going to prioritize the comments, doing some of the legwork for me of what Walter thinks of your start sit question. Plug the start sit into the Walter Picks app. Let me know what the Walter Picks app is saying, and then I'll give you my take. I'm going to prioritize the comments. Let me know ahead of time. So because I'm trying to get to as many as I can. This is going to help me get to a lot more start sit questions. All right, happy PR, Wandale, Chubb, Golden, Pittman. Walter thinks Pittman or Wandale. Yeah, happy PR. Like I usually do instantly skew to the running backs because it just matters way more for touchdowns in this format. So I'm definitely like a lot more willing to start Nick Chubb here. You can't start Matthew Golden this week. You can't start him. I think the breakout's incoming, but I don't think he even has 5 total fantasy points this whole season. Hasn't hit a 10% target share yet. Braden, you can't start Golden. You can't drop him or start him. He's in that in-between that a lot of rookies are in right now. It's tough for fantasy, but you just got to hold on tight and be patient and hope the role grows, but definitely not startable. Wandale, I am very skeptical of Wandale Robinson. I have watched many years of Wandale Robinson. I've been a known Wandale Robinson hater. And last week was not the same Wandale Robinson I've been watching for the last 4, 5, 6 years. I mean, he had 31% of the team's air yards, 162 air yards. Let's just go back really quick because I'm curious now. There's no way that Wandale's ever had a game with this many air yards. Like, just absolutely no chance. He had a max of 95 last season. Almost every single game, he was under 60 air yards last season. The year before that, if you're watching live on TikTok, by the way, guys, we have Wandale's game logs up on the YouTube Live right now. It's a better viewing experience on YouTube. Come to the YouTube Live. I'm telling you. Link is in the TikTok bio. The year before that, he averaged 24 air yards per game. That was 107th in the league. He peaked at 70 air yards in 2023. And we're going to keep going here just to prove the point, since I was definitely on the spot here. Wow, 108 yards he peaked at in his rookie season before he got hurt. And he had 19.4 points in that game. So yeah, by far the most air yards in his career last week. Do we think that sticks? He had 25 air yards in week 1. I don't think it sticks, man. I think this was more of a thing against the Cowboys, like Russell Wilson just somehow turning the clock back against a really, really bad secondary. Consider me very, very skeptical about this Wandale breakout last week. He was wide receiver 5 last week. Both Wandale and Neighbors were top 5 receivers last week. Just an anomaly. So coming back to the start sit here. I know, sorry, you sent me down a Wandale rabbit hole here, Braden. So I apologize for that. But yeah, I think it's really Pittman versus Chubb. In my opinion, I'd prefer to bench Wandale. I think you said Pittman had the edge here in the Walter Picks app. I'm curious how close it is in half PPR though. It's definitely closer than PPR, of course. And PPR, it's an easy Michael Pittman. Yeah, half PPR, it's much closer. I think you go Pittman. Yeah, I think I would lean Pittman still. I think Nick Chubb does have a safer floor, in my opinion. They had the same bust probability, but the running backs in half PPR, they almost always have a safer floor. Their touches are just more locked in. Like Nick Chubb's getting at least 10 carries, in this game. He had 13 and 12 the last 2 weeks. Like we've already seen the floor for Chubb in half PPR. It's like around 6 points. The floor for Pittman is probably a little bit lower. But yeah, I still think I'd go Pittman for the ceiling. A good one. Good start sit there. McMillan or Pearsall? Walter Picks app says Pearsall. Yeah, guys, let me know what the Walter Picks app says. I'll be a little bit more likely to pull up the comment. And we're going to have Seth joining us here momentarily, decked out in his Steelers gear. Looking forward to that. I will get to this start sit, and then we will bring on Seth, and he'll help us answer some of the start sits. We'll get some of his takes for the week as well. Looking forward to that. All right, let's get to this one quick. Travis Hunter and Stephon Diggs, PPR flex. Walter likes both these guys, Dobbins, Marv, Ertz, Diggs, and Pickens. Yeah, I personally would go Pickens over Diggs this week. I think I said that earlier on the live. I think the ceiling for Pickens is absolutely higher than the ceiling for Diggs. I think Pickens is playing like a decent amount more snaps than Diggs still too. Yeah, Diggs was up to 51% snap share. I do think this is going to continue to grow. We talked about this on the live last week. Like we're starting to see the floor games stack a bit for Stephon Diggs. He didn't play at all in the preseason. He's coming off a torn ACL from last year. He's almost 32 years old. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 on the team. And I think the first 2 weeks have shown that a bit. But he hasn't even had 10 points in a game this season. Like the ceiling for George Pickens against his Bear secondary. Yeah, and in the Walter Picks app, it does agree with the ceiling take here. From me, I'm on half PPR here, so I'll switch to PPR. But I think I would go Pickens and then Travis Hunter in this spot. Pickens and Travis Hunter, or Pickens and J.K. Dobbins, even if you want the floor for Dobbins and the ceiling with Pickens. I'm a little nervous about Travis Hunter. I'm very curious what Seth thinks about Travis Hunter as well. But yeah, I'm going Pickens over Diggs personally, even though he projects a bit worse. I think the ceiling is higher. All right, we're going to be bringing on Seth here in a second. Put the volume up so the TikTok live can hear him.
Here we go.
Seth, man, how are we doing?
Everybody? Doing great. Beautiful day here in Nashville. So excited for week 3. Now it's time to prove it for so many of these teams. So super excited just for a ton of football today.
100%, dude. It is the best day of the week. Pumped to have you join the live. No BS Fantasy Football. For those not familiar with Seth's channel, he's been absolutely crushing the content. I mean, there's not very many creators out there more consistent than Seth is. And he keeps it straight, man. Like the brand really is no BS. He sticks to that. Seth, last week we had Avery on the live, and he was right about basically everything that he talked about. So he set the bar
classic
high.
Avery right there.
He set the bar high for you, and he did talk me out about of several bad decisions. So hopefully you can do the same for us this week. We're going to get to a ton of start sits. I've been urging the comment section to let us know what the Walter Picks app thinks about these start sits ahead of time. I think that will help us be efficient here as well. I think that the most difficult start sit decisions this week are with the receivers. I know I sent you over, I think, a few examples ahead of time, but like I was struggling even to decide how to narrow down the receivers start sits to prepare for. You just saw I had a Travis Hunter, George Pickens, Stephon Diggs question. I went George Pickens.
I agree there.
Steph Diggs, you would agree with that one?
I would agree there. Yeah. The big thing that I'm watching out for so far, and one of the things I'm doing in my research, is looking kind of for the laws of fantasy football. And it seems like this year, and maybe this was a Bill Belichick thing back in the day, where he would always take away the number 1 option. You could kind of guess when you're playing the Patriots, as you know well as a Patriots fan, you know that the number 1 option is being taken away. So when I'm looking through all these tough wide receiver starts and sits, we've had a couple defenses who have really shined so far, and a couple defenses that, let's just say, have not shined. And I'm really looking for matchups, especially week 3, particularly for players like George Pickens, who had a bad week 1, great week 2. Travis Hunter, who's been involved but has seen about a 66% snap share, like you'll see if we checked him out in the Walter Picks app. I'm in there all the time, guys, so I know snap shares, I know target shares, those kind of things for the players. So I'm really looking at matchups in particular this week to make some of those tougher start sit decisions.
Yeah, we've definitely seen a lot of McLaurin. It's the part of the reason I think the receiver start sits are tough is there's some guys in more difficult matchups, but also all the backup QBs just throw like a huge question mark into a lot of the start sits. A ton of T. Higgins start sit questions, totally understandable there. Obviously, you can't really bench Jamar Chase. We also have a ton of Terry McLaurin questions that I think are pretty difficult here. This is a good one from Steve. He's asking about Pittman, McLaurin, and then honestly, these other three I think are maybe really tough between Franklin, Tillman, and Diggs. I think I'd probably rank those Diggs, then Franklin, then Tillman. I think I agree with the Walter Picks app here about Pittman and McLaurin being the best, but I'm seeing a ton of McLaurin starts it questions on TikTok as well. Him versus Michael Pittman is maybe an interesting one and sort of a vibe check one, because if you can't start him over Michael Pittman, I think that says a lot about how nervous we are about Terry McLaurin. To me, I said my favorite player prop in this game was McLaurin over 3.5 receptions. I'm not that scared about Mariota's ability to get him the ball. 3.5 just feels really, really low for a player of this talent level. And he didn't practice like most of training camp. He missed most of training camp. And we saw this with Jamar Chase last year. We've seen it time and time and again. When you don't practice off training camp, you start a little slow. Like that is pretty normal. It makes a ton of sense intuitively as well. And that's exactly what the data, is showing for McLaurin too. He only played 78% of snaps in week one, only had 4 targets. This would have been one of his lowest target totals of last season. That was with Jaden Daniels. Last week against the Packers, plays 91% of snaps, sees 9 targets. Obviously, Daniels, he finished the game, but he's going to be out this week. The Raiders have not been good against receivers this season. I think Mariota is going to be at least capable to get this guy at least 4 catches. I think pretty good chance to get his first touchdown of the season here as well. I feel okay with McLaurin. We have him ranked in the Walter Picks app right now as wide receiver 18 left on the week. So a top 24 receiver. How you feel about him in this comparison of him versus Pittman? And I'm also curious, would you start McLaurin over Travis Hunter too?
Yeah, it's definitely a tough one, especially with Pittman. Last week, he faced the Pat Surtain. I know that the Colts did a pretty good job against Pat Surtain, especially after he got injured. But Pittman still only had 8 fantasy points last week. So I really think this is a great question from Steve here. And McLaurin, I've been talking about it on my TikTok this week that McLaurin for me is a start. He's a buy low. What's the panic meter on McLaurin? I put it at a 2 for the exact reasons you said. Yeah. He missed a lot of the preseason. You had Deebo Samuel getting all that connection with Jaden Daniels and Deebo Samuel, maybe a better screen, short yardage guy. And Terry McLaurin comes back last week, has 9 targets. So he looked great last week, even though I think he only had 4 receptions. So yeah. I like Terry McLaurin. I like the prop as well that you have for McLaurin. Yeah. He stands out as a player that is someone that I wish, hopefully you guys tuned in and tried to send some trades for him this week, because I think, especially with the Raiders, is it their run defense is good or their pass defense is terrible? Doesn't matter. You can see in the Walter Picks app, we have them ranked 30th for fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. So I think McLaurin is a great start today. Pretty tough between Pittman, but with Steve's question, he's starting both those guys. And I think those are both good starts, especially Tennessee. Their defense is good. I mean, I will say that, but it's still a young, developing team, and they have been giving up points, particularly last week. Devonta Adams, one of my big draft targets for sure, had a great week. Obviously, Puka Nacua had a great week as well. So I think Pittman and McLaurin are both great starts, and I would start McLaurin over Travis Hunter, who's been playing about 66% of snaps. I forget who the other option was, but I definitely preferred McLaurin as well. Yeah. So McLaurin, I think, is a good start.
I think he had Diggs and Troy Franklin in there.
Yeah.
I think I would start those guys over them as well. But yeah, I think we're in alignment on that one. Travis Hunter, I mentioned when I talked about that game earlier, the average depth of target's just been so low that it's hard to get too excited about him right now. A prospect I'm still pretty high on, and it seemed like we were right about that report saying that he was going to play more defense. Didn't mean he was going to play less offense. He ran 2 more routes
about the same.
In week 1. So like the offensive role is still there, but the role he's playing within the offense is just a really shallow slot role. So there's not a huge ceiling there unless he's able to really create after the catch. So yeah, definitely an interesting start today. We've seen a ton of Travis Hunter questions already. I'm curious about this one, talking through this one with you. Actually, I put up Jackson Smith and Jigba here. I'm not nervous about JSN not playing. I think that's why we're getting a lot of the JSN start sits, but I want to bring up Brian Thomas Jr. since he was asked in this question too. I think, to me, Drake London, one of the most difficult start sits of the week. You look at the matchup, and it's pretty concerning. He's coming off a pretty poor game, his worst game really with Michael Penix that he's had. Ricky Pearsall is just breaking projections in the Walter Picks app right now. We have Juwan Jennings projected out, and this is a huge piece of this start sit question. This is a late window game though, so you got to make some calls earlier than you'd want. You see Pearsall plays at 4:25 Eastern. These 2 guys play at 1 o'clock. So you're going to have to lock this one in beforehand. Jennings didn't practice Friday. He's a true game time decision. Brian Thomas Jr., people are just fully panicked on him, which I'm not fully subscribing to that. I kind of agree with the rankings we have here. If Jennings is out, I'm starting Pearsall. If Jennings ends up being in, obviously that will knock him in these projections, and I would probably want to have started Brian Thomas Jr. But in my opinion, I'm operating like Jennings is out. So I'm starting Pearsall here. Then I'd go Brian Thomas Jr., then Drake London. I'm not panicking, though, on Brian Thomas Jr. or Drake London. But yeah, if you have these options, I'm okay benching London this week. That's my take on it. But yeah, how would you approach this start-sit decision, Seth?
Man, it's crazy that they have all three. Like, this is a good problem to have. I think you're in good shape, and maybe it is very tough this week, and I think this is a great question. But you're going to be good for the season. So I just want to let you know it's only week 3. By the time the fantasy playoffs come around, which I think you're going to make with 3 great wide receivers like this, you'll be like, I'm starting all 3, no questions asked. I'm locked in. But today, I think I would Drake London. My big fear is that they're going to run the ball like crazy like they did last week. So it's nothing like Drake London, still, I think, one of the best receivers in the league, amazing player. But when your offense can run for 200 yards, I'm going to run for 200 yards.
Yeah.
So that's the scary thing here. And we see that these matchups he's been facing week 2, number 2 against the run, Carolina, or against the pass, Carolina. I don't think it's because they're like the Browns, Myles Garrett and Mason Graham. I think it's because people are just running all over them. They're not a lockdown, no-fly zone. So I'm a little bit scared about Drake London. Brian Thomas Jr. has had the wrist injury, and he had, I think, 12 targets last week. And when you have 12 targets, it's like, how do you bench him? But if Juwan Jennings is out, I think Pearsall is the start. He's been getting the most consistent volume. You know the 49ers are going to score touchdowns. George Kittle is still out. So I still think Ricky Pearsall is probably your safest start of the day. The boom probability, I'm a little bit surprised. Well, I mean, with Juwan Jennings out, boom probability is there. But if Juwan Jennings was in, if you're not sure about that, I would think Brian Thomas Jr. probably has the best chance to go for a huge week. So I would say if you're in a really tough matchup, go with Brian Thomas Jr. Trust that 12 targets, if he can translate that into 8 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown, that's probably better than Ricky Pearsall would do if they both had great games. But if you're in a matchup where you're projected to win or really close and you don't want to take a big risk, I think Ricky Pearsall is safe and has good upside, because you just wait till 405, you see Juwan Jennings out, you're like, boom, I'm good with the upside here as well. So I probably would lock in Pearsall unless you're facing a really tough matchup.
Yeah, it's totally fair. And when I say that he's breaking projections, you look at the roster here. Obviously, Kittle's out. Brandon Ayuk is working his way back. He's got multiple more weeks. I think we're projecting him back around like week 10 to 12 area. Ricky Pearsall, if Jennings is out, he's competing with Christian it's just going to be such a consolidated offense between Pearsall and McCaffrey. I think Kendrick Bourne, honestly, maybe a sneaky DFS play if Juwan Jennings ends up being out, and especially in DraftKings and FanDuel tournaments, when there's situations like this where it's a late window game and there's a big questionable player, sometimes you can get a lot of leverage by having these late swap options, and you can swap Kendrick Bourne in potentially if he has that connection with Mac Jones from the Patriots. So yeah, kind of a sneaky role here for Bourne potentially.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's a good call.
I think Sky Moore is going to be active here for the 49ers. Like Malik Turner, I think they called up from the practice squad. There's just no one. Jake Tongus, is that tight end, just not a target earner like George Kittle. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about Pearsall.
And he's looked good too. If you guys haven't watched him play, Pearsall looks really good. It's just how many targets is he going to get?
All right, let's get to another one here. Walter says Judy in this start sit question. Another Travis Hunter start sit here. We have gonna have to narrow this down to 3. Got Travis Hunter, Rashid Shaheed, Cooper Kupp, and Judy chasing ceilings. Also has Keenan versus Egbuka. Walter says Egbuka. Yeah, I would lean Egbuka to that second one, but let's focus in on the first one here. We have Hunter, Shaheed, Kupp, and Judy. Which of these 4 is the easiest bench? I think we just remove Rashid Shaheed from this one.
I agree.
For now, definitely a ceiling with him, but yeah, he's the floor is definitely really low as well. All right, let's go to Judy and then Cooper Kupp.
I like Cooper Kupp a lot, honestly.
Yeah, he projects really low for us right now, and I think we might be under projecting his target share, arguably a little bit. We have him for a 20% target share this week. It was a tale of 2 games,
split in the middle, right?
For him. Yeah, and maybe we could get this to 22, 23% potentially, but I wouldn't push it much higher than that. Zach Charbonnet is obviously out. Judy projects the best year versus the Packers. A kind of oddly high boom percentage here, but the Browns have been throwing the ball a ton. I don't think the target share is even that high for Judy, but the target total is, yeah. So the target share has been around 19%. He's getting 8 targets a game. You can probably lock that in this week in a game the Browns are going to be losing. This is a tough one for me, Seth. I'm curious what you think in a spot like this. He said he's chasing ceiling here too, which does like push me a little bit more, I think, towards Judy. To me, Cooper Kupp's not really the ceiling play, but yeah, what do you think in this spot?
Yeah, this one's tough because I see the Packers as I don't really want to play anyone against them. They shut down like week 1. I was talking about this on my panic meter and talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown. Last week, 39 points. Week 1, he had 8 points, I believe. Yep. He didn't have over 10. In a full PPR league, that's Amon-Ra St. Brown. You look at this team, it's Judy and Tillman as like kind of options. There's Fannin and Njoku. He's going to probably need a touchdown to hit that mark. And getting down the field is particularly difficult against this team. If you watch the Packers game, they have got 4 people rushing the quarterback, and then they have the rest of the other 8 just staring at Joe Flacco, being like, all right, what are you going to do with the ball, man? What are you going to do? So I am a little bit worried about Judy, like the Browns scoring, like leaving a donut on the board in this game. And I would not play Travis Hunter. I don't think that's ceiling at all. I think with his snap share, again, around 66%. So between Kupp and Judy, I think Judy would be your ceiling play. He has that big play down the field, scores a touchdown. I think if it was me, I like Cooper Kupp a lot. JSN, he's going to play. That's what we're thinking. But he's been a little bit sick. Like, if JSN's a little bit sick, I don't know about you, but I don't like getting tackled when I don't feel good. That sucks. So I think Cooper Kupp could be actually a pretty nice option today with JSN running down the field. Kenneth Walker going to have a big day as well. So that leaves Cooper Kupp as kind of the third option. And when he's a third option, he's too good. He's too good to cover. Last week was 2 weeks ago was his first week with the Seahawks. Same with Sam Darnold. Last week they really connected against the Steelers, unfortunately for me. So I would probably play Cooper Kupp if it was my team. But if you are chasing ceiling, I agree with the Walter Picks app that the boom probability is the best for Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, as you talk through it, I said I liked Fannin more than Njoku this week for a lot of the same reasons.
Yeah, I agree.
Just looking at the matchup section of the Walter Picks app, this is probably honestly my favorite screen of the Walter Picks app as the season goes on, because you can look back and see what types of players did well at a specific position against these defenses. The only receiver that's had a good game, the only receiver that's gone over 10 points against the Packers is Deebo Samuel. He had 5 air yards in this game. 5 air yards. Like you have to get the ball out quick or you're sacked against the Packers. That's just the reality. I think that the Browns are going to try to lean on the run with how good Judkins looked. And we'll see how long, that can last against the Packers. And if they're trailing, they're going to have to throw. And I think that's going to be a lot of Harold Fannin in this game. Like, Judy's really not their quick guy in the receiving game. So yeah, I think that's a very, very fair concern for Judy. I honestly think it gives him the lowest floor, like, of these 3 guys. It wouldn't be crazy to see under 5 points from Judy in this spot. So yeah, as Seth talked through this, I honestly think I agree. I think I might go Cooper Kupp here. We do have Cooper Kupp with a slightly higher ceiling than Travis Hunter. JSN is going to be fine, by the way. There was a Schefter report that came out like relatively recently, said he's going to play. He has flu-like symptoms on Saturday, but it sounds like he's definitely going to be active and playing.
That means he's going for 40 points, right? Anytime you're playing with flu-like symptoms, you're going off.
Yeah, that's the best possible we could get for him. All right, Walter says Jordan Mason. Start one, Javonte, Pickens.
Oh, I love this.
Or Jordan Mason. Javonte versus Jordan Mason is a really interesting one. For sure.
Great drafting, by the way, Cole. Just got to shout you out there. That is some great drafting right there.
Yeah, 100%. I was saying when I talked about this Cowboys game, Javonte might be the best fantasy pick so far this year. There might not be a better fantasy pick that you could have made than Javonte Williams. He was going outside the top 10 rounds in most drafts, and he's running back, I think, 5?
5, yeah. I think that sounds right
3.
to me. 3.
He's been a top 5 running back in both games.
Sorry for disrespecting you, Javonte.
He's over Bijan Robinson.
Jonathan Taylor as well. He's been awesome.
In points. I mean, really, really crazy stuff. Obviously not a guy you feel great benching in this moment. And he's got a good matchup versus the Bears. Pickens has a great matchup versus the Bears. But then you got Jordan Mason here with no Aaron Jones. Going against the Bengals. They got Carson Wentz starting at backup QB. He's smashing in the projections here. It's another guy that he's kind of breaking projections. Like, you give him most of Aaron Jones' role, and he instantly projects as a top 12 running back in fantasy with one of the highest floors across the league. And he's been pretty efficient too so far this season. We know the Vikings rushing attack in general is usually pretty efficient. So I lean towards agreeing with the app here and go with Jordan Mason. But yeah, it's tough to bench Javonte Williams right now. And I would play both these guys over Pickens, who I'm going to tell a ton of people to start today. I'm definitely in on the George Pickens ceiling game today, but the floor is way lower than these other two guys. I mean, the floor is so much higher. And you can see that pretty clearly here in the app as well. But yeah, I think I do lean Jordan Mason over Javonte. I'm curious, Seth, if you agree. Not an easy guy to bench here, Javonte Williams.
Yeah, I would agree as well. Again, you have the best problem, Cole. You may have some opportunity for trades here as well. I'm sure there's people in your league that are going to be like, I would kill to start any one of these guys in my starting lineup. So you may have some trade opportunity. But I think I would go with Jordan Mason as well. Last year, he was really awesome when he had the role for the 49ers. Obviously, that's the 49ers. But we got Carson Wentz at quarterback today. That's going to make things a little bit easier on the team. So I think Jordan Mason is a safer play. And also, who's going to score the touchdowns for the Vikings? I'm running the ball against the Bengals. Actually, Sam asked me to bring my prop of the week and my bold take of the week. We've kind of hinted at both those in the last two segments, but I think the Bengals are going to be actually a little bit decent today, and Jordan Mason's going to have good receiving and rushing work. So if neither one scored a touchdown, definitely Jordan Mason, and that's kind of how I like to make my fantasy football decisions because I think Mason has good touchdown upside as well.
Yeah, it's totally fair. It seems like we're in alignment there. I referenced it earlier too. Jordan Mason's props right around 100 total yards today, and I think that's fair. I think that's like a fair line in my opinion. That's where it should be said, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him go over that. I think he's got a great chance at touchdown. Bengals run defense has been really bad this season, and like they should be able to lean more on the run with a backup QB in for the Bengals too. I think there's a chance, like a decent chance, Carson Wentz is an improvement for the Vikings. I don't think that's like a lock though. Like Carson Wentz is certainly not an auto lock improvement, but yeah, JJ McCarthy has been.
It's been awful. It can't get much worse.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. This was a question we got from the TikTok live. This is a really good one here. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Calvin Ridley, and Jameson Williams in a PPR league. The Walter Picks app is saying Jameson Williams. By the way, we're prioritizing the comments to let us know what the Walter Picks app is projecting first, just so we can be efficient, try to get to as many start sits as we can. We're going to get to hundreds of start sits questions on this live stream today. I want to try to prioritize some of the toughest ones, though, for when Seth is on the live. We were pretty in, Seth, on Jameson Williams. I think both of us before. Yeah. I think we were both very in on Calvin Ridley. I've been a huge Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt skeptic. I definitely would not start him over either of these guys in a PPR league. He had less than 2 points last week. I get that Austin Eckler's out. I don't think it's like a guarantee that necessarily leads to much of a different role for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, though, because Jeremy McNichols is the clear replacement for Austin Eckler to play most of the pass down work. Now Chris Rodriguez is going to be active. I think there's a real chance he ends up being the goal line back. I was worried about that before the season. He hasn't been he's been healthy scratch the first 2 games, but there's a real chance he actually plays in short yardage and goal line work. If Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt's not scoring, he's not getting 10 points. Unless, I think there's still a ceiling now, like a higher ceiling for him to get more receiving work. And maybe he will get that goal line work. But to me, those are 2 big ifs, and not if I'm willing to push here in week 3, especially if I have Ridley or Jameson Williams. I agree with the Walter Picks app here in JMO in this game against the Ravens, that just their offense is unstoppable. There's no stopping the Ravens offense, and that's going to be good news, I think, for the Lions offense this week. I do kind of expect a Ridley bounce back. My favorite prop in the Titans game was Ridley's yards over 52.5. I'm still kind of in on him, even though it's just been a really tough first 2 matchups, the Rams and the Broncos that he had to play against. So yeah, I go JMO. I think it's close between him and Ridley, but yeah, I'm playing them both pretty easily over JCM. Are you more confident in Bill than I am?
I am not more confident. One of the worst things that can happen is week 1, a player goes crazy, and he was mega efficient, over 8 yards a carry and a touchdown for Bill Krosky-Merritt. I am scared about Ridley, though. One of the things the Colts have done amazing job at is removing the opponent's wide receiver 1. Week 1, Tyreek Hill had under 8 points. Last week, they faced Cortland Sutton. He had under 2 points. He only had 1 reception. They also tried to give him the ball in the end zone a couple times as well. I was rooting for him because I have Cortland Sutton in fantasy. And you could see Troy Franklin did amazingly in this game because they were taking away Sutton. And I think when you face the Titans, it's Tony Pollard you got to stop. And then Alec Ayomenor, I actually think kind of a sneaky play to touchdown last week. He's looked great connection with Cam Ward, who I think looks great, by the way, as well. But I'm scared for Ridley just because I think if it's the game plan for the Colts, hey, we take away Ridley, we take away maybe the best player on the offense or most explosive player on the offense, and then we leave Alec Mayor, rookie, Cam Ward, rookie, and Tony Pollard, who hasn't been majorly involved, to try to win this game, which I don't think they're going to be able to do. So I do lean Jameson Williams because if you're looking for boom potential as well, Krosky Merritt could have an amazing game against the Raiders. We talked about Terry McLaurin earlier. The Raiders' pass defense is awful, and I think they're going to lean on that. So Jameson Williams, it just takes one play for him to get 12.5 points with his talent and the boom potential. So I like that the best out of what the Walter. I agree with the Walter.
He had 2 catches, 19 fantasy points, top 12 wide receiver on 2 catches for Jameson Williams. Like we talked about this before the season 2. What happens when he gets 6 catches in a game, right? Like the type of ceiling for Jameson Williams in games where he gets more volume than usual is absolutely massive, and he can have a good game on such low volume with the type of role that he's in. So yeah, I agree with that. I want to rip through some Calvin Ridley specific start sits here since I'm getting more of them in the TikTok live. So we're going to go rapid fire here, Seth. You give me Calvin Ridley or the other player. Calvin Ridley or Emeka Egbuka.
I'd go Egbuka.
Calvin Ridley or DJ Moore.
Oh no. I'd probably play Ridley, I guess.
All right, we got to talk about DJ Moore. Calvin Ridley or AJ Brown.
Oh no. I go AJ Brown. I believe that this could be a bounce back. He had 9 targets last week, 8 targets.
Calvin Ridley or Marvin Harrison Jr.
Oh no. Wow, you guys are asking really tough questions. I would probably play Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of those. You definitely have me more concerned about Ridley than I was before.
I'm so worried about Ridley.
Looking back at the Sutton game from last week, that's Ridley's floor. That's an extremely, extremely low floor. I would play all those guys, I think, over Calvin Ridley that I just mentioned. And yeah, I'm really excited about. I think he is.
Yeah, he's good.
You don't see rookie receivers start their careers like this unless they're good. Like you just don't see it. Like almost every single receiver you would compare Imanor to through his first 2 games, if you look at similar performances, like over half those guys ended up being like legit good receivers, good fantasy options. He reminds me a ton of Eric Decker. I think he's just going to be in like just all he's going to do is score touchdowns with Cam Ward. He was a prospect we were really high on before the draft, and yeah, it's been cool to see him, even though he wasn't even the first receiver drafted on his own team. It took
crazy
over him. Still, he's produced right away. Definitely a really sneaky option. All right, let's pull up another one here. This one I think looked good. I want to get to a DJ Moore one for sure. Here we go. This is a good 2 guys to talk to.
Oh my gosh.
I
double ham Sam.
I did double ham Sam. I did get to. I talked a decent amount about this Eagles game. You were a really big Eagles skeptic before the season. I mean, I don't think I talked to anyone lower on AJ Brown and Devonta Smith and Jalen Hurts, so just like passing wise, than both Seth and Avery before the season.
Thank you.
Pretty skeptical as well. But as we got close to the season, I started to get really nervous about being so low on this passing attack. Last year, they had, if you look at just the last decade, the Eagles had one of the lowest pass plays per game that we've seen in the last decade, like a historically low pass volume last season. For the Eagles, they just didn't have many close games. Saquon obviously went nuts, and they just leaned on the run. And I thought, like, as I thought about it more, like, there's just no way they're going to be this low again. It's just like they're going to be in closer games. And it's really rare to see something historically low repeat second year in a row. We see this with like insane touchdown seasons, regressing as well. We talked about that with Baker Mayfield a little earlier in the live too. And somehow this year, they're like 3 or 4 pass attempts per game lower this year so far. Only 2 games though. And to me, this is going to be a competitive game. The Rams probably would have beaten the Eagles last year in the playoffs had it not been snowing.
I agree.
That game was extremely competitive. Saquon went for 232 total yards and 2 TDs. In that game, there's just no, like the snow just didn't affect him, affected everyone else. It was like that type of game for Saquon Barkley in the playoffs. But yeah, if they get pushed, like they are going to have to throw. There's no way they're this low pass volume this season. Like there's just no way it stays this low. And I think it's going to change like this week if this game ends up being close. DJ Moore, it feels like the vibes are bad for him right now. It's hard not to project him pretty good, but the vibes seem bad. They're saying they're going to get Luther Bird more involved. Like there's sort of open competition type discussion. He hasn't had a game over 10 points yet, but I mean, an amazing matchup here against the Cowboys, who just got cooked by Wan'Dale Robinson for over 100 yards. I mean, if Wan'Dale can do it, DJ Moore's got to be able to do it. If you want to, simplify it just down to that. But yeah, I think I'd lean AJ Brown personally over DJ Moore. This is a tough one, but yeah, I'm curious your take on if you think they can keep this pass volume this low, the Rams will keep this game competitive, and then this starts it to AJ Brown versus DJ Moore.
Yeah, I personally do think the pass volume is going to stay low, and it's going to stay low value as well. Last week, AJ Brown, what do you have, 9 targets?
He had 8 targets.
8 targets.
That was 38% target share. He only ran 22 routes. He's run 22 routes in each game.
And the air yards as well is what I want to lean into here.
Yeah, like if we look at DJ Moore, just as a quick reference point here, like DJ Moore, he had only an 18% target share, but he ran 35 routes. Like he's running 15, more routes a week than AJ Brown. Like he's almost playing an extra half a game in comparison to AJ Brown. Like if you want to think about it that way. So yeah, I mean, just the route numbers really have been low.
So I think the Eagles, if you, I'm originally from Western New York, upstate New York. So I definitely am dialed into the Bills. And when Stephon Diggs got hurt, was it last year or 2 years ago, that unlocked Josh Allen because they stopped trying to force it down the field. They stopped trying to throw those wide receivers. And then he goes off to win the MVP. Before that, he was throwing a lot of interceptions. It was almost a lock every game. He's going to throw a pick. And a lot of that was when he threw down the field. They just stopped doing that because they don't need to win. You see every player on the Bills offense, frustratingly for fantasy football, not good. Everyone's so involved. And I think the Eagles kind of are basing their strategy off this. Jalen Hurts, I personally don't think he's an amazing, downfield pocket passer. He's not a Joe Burrow, but he has his skill set and he's dotting up people around the line of scrimmage. It's impossible to stop Saquon and the receivers. So with low air yards and low passing attempts, I don't think they need to pass to win games. And so I do think the volume's going to stay low, but this week I would go AJ Brown. You look over at DJ Moore and you see Rome Odunze, who's been legendary this season. And I still think DJ Moore, I think he's the best receiver on the roster, but I think he's also getting covered. And you're like, okay, well, I've got Rome Odunze, who's also awesome. I've got Luther Burden, who's also good. DeAndre Swift has been good for fantasy as well. I've got the tight ends who are good as well. So I'm just not going to throw towards the guy who's being covered by their best player. I'm going to throw this guy who's way better than his opponent, and I'm going to unlock them. So I would go AJ Brown. I like his touchdown upside in this game. I think the Rams do keep it relatively close. They have a good run game. I love the way that they're technicians in the pass game as well. They have 2 of the best receivers in the NFL with Puka Nacua, Devonta Adams. So I think it's a close game. I still think the Eagles win. I think the Eagles, I just don't see them. I just don't see them losing any games this year. Like, are they getting undefeated? Probably not. But I do think the Eagles are just heavy favorites in every game with the way they execute in short yardage. They execute in the red zone. So I like the touchdown upside. And I would go AJ Brown.
The Eagles 3.5-point favorites at home in this game. A lot of respect definitely being given to the Rams in the betting markets. Looking at the start sit in more detail, my gut said AJ Brown. My gut still says AJ Brown. But man, you're benching DJ Moore, who has had basically better numbers across the board. More targets per game, more catches per game, way better yards per reception, running way more routes, like 50% more routes, better yards per out run. He has more air yards per game. He's basically better in every single volume stat and every single production stat. And he has a better matchup than AJ Brown. It's a tough start sit for sure. But yeah, if we're right about this game being close, I think you will have wanted to play AJ Brown. And I'm just a little bit nervous about the vibes between him and Ben Johnson and the Bears. And if Luther Burden's more involved, my favorite player prop today is Luther Burden over 7.5 receiving yards. I also laddered it up with some of his alt lines at 25 and 40. There's been reports that he's going to get more involved. I liked him a lot as a prospect. I think he could be a really, really talented player. I think 7.5 yards is like really, really safe bet for him this week. But yeah, if he gets more involved, like maybe it eats into DJ Moore, more likely to eat into Zacchaeus' role. But yeah, I don't know. Just the vibes have me a little bit concerned. I'm willing to bet on the passing attack for the Eagles. But yeah, that was a tough one. That's definitely a tough one. Not easy to bench the guy in a better matchup with better volume so far this season. Imanor or Pittman. I think we're definitely both going to say Pittman.
Yeah, I'm going to say Pittman. I like Imanor. Don't drop him. If he's available in your league, add him. But I'm not going to start him this week yet.
Yeah, I think we agree with that. All right, we have Pearsall and Devontae Adams being the ones the Walter Picks app is suggesting here over Debo and Egbuka. So I think we're both starting Adams.
Yeah.
Sure. I think Pearsall right now projects better than Adams. But let's just take it for what it is with the chance that Juwan Jennings plays. Obviously, that would bump Pearsall down. And this is part of the reason, tuning into these lives can be super helpful for people using the Walter Picks app, because you got to have that context that we have Juwan Jennings projected out to make the right start sit with Pearsall, since there's still some uncertainty there, and we got to project it, one way or the other. We're usually pretty good at being on the right side of this stuff, but we're not 100%. It's a true game time decision. This isn't 100% type of thing.
Other apps aren't even trying, just to throw it out there. They don't like. They just don't care that much. We are actually trying at Walter Picks to give you the best possible projection.
Yeah, I mean, Sleeper, ESPN, and Yahoo, they probably won't even update at all once the news is even out. Like before the game, it's going to be too late at that point. So yeah, we are out here grinding on the projections team, trying to make every single small decision and getting it right. And we'll definitely be more right than we're wrong throughout the season, like we've shown in past years. But yeah, Pearsall versus Debo versus Egbuka. If Jennings is out, I think we see Pearsall's projection drop right around this range, this Egbuka, Debo Samuel range, right around 13.5 points, which is like around what he's been without a touchdown. 14.8 in week 1, 9.2. He hasn't scored yet. This is the best matchup he's had so far this season. Though I'm going Pearsall. Again, I think Jennings isn't going to play. And if he does, I think it's pretty close anyways. Debo is definitely interesting with Mariota. I could see the shallow passing from Mariota to Debo working well. I think I would play Buccaneers though over Debo still. But yeah, I'm going Pearsall here. I don't know about you, Seth.
Yeah, I'm gonna also go Pearsall. I think his floor for targets is the best, and that's really what I like to make my decisions. But I would go in order that we have them here: Pearsall, Debo, then Egbuka. The thing is, on Egbuka, I have him on the biggest sell high in all of fantasy football right now. He has 8 catches. He has 3 touchdowns. Guys, that's not gonna continue. Remember Xavier Worthy at the week 1 last season scored 2 touchdowns on 3 touches, and everyone's like, oh, he's the guy, he's here. And it's like, he was pretty much unstartable the whole season. I think Egbuka, especially with Chris Godwin coming back, will start to fade back a little bit. He's also dealing with a little bit of an injury today as well. So I think for those reasons, I would go Pearsall, then Debo, then Egbuka.
We got a QB starts it, and then a tight end starts it. Both these are good. Then I do want to get to some Travis Etienne starts it questions. I'm seeing a bunch of those. So we'll answer this starts it first that we got pulled up on the YouTube live on TikTok and YouTube. If you have a Travis Etienne starts it question, fire it in the chat. We're going to pull up at least one of those, if not multiple, and let us know what the Walter Picks app is projecting as well. That is helpful. It's a free. Everyone can get the Walter Picks app projections and head-to-head starts it for free. If you are serious about fantasy, you should definitely do the 7-day trial for the premium features in the Walter Picks app too. You're just not trying. If you haven't used the Walter Picks app yet, it does obviously help us out and the entire brand at Walter Picks too. You can find the app in the YouTube description, in the TikTok bio. But yeah,
80% made the playoffs last year. Yeah. So it's, that's just the reason why to check it out.
Yeah, that's no joke, that stat either. All right, let's get to these QB ones. I think getting some Daniel Jones starts hits. I did expect some of these. It's a really tough guy to bench right now. When I talked about this Colts game, my question is Daniel Jones a top 5 fantasy football quarterback this season? Like, he really might be. Right now, he's QB2.
Yeah, QB 26 points a game, guys. Rushing touchdown both weeks.
That includes a 316-yard game against the Denver Broncos.
Locked in.
Where he was attacking Pat Surtain. I know he picked up an ankle injury. He's got 3 rushing touchdowns, and he's averaging almost 300 passing yards per game. I mean, this is like exactly what we want in fantasy football. I mean, it's perfect. For fantasy, he's got a great supporting cast as well. And we just saw last week, like, he might be matchup proof in this role, in this offense. So, like, he's a tough guy to bench. The Titans are in a good matchup. The Rams won't be a good matchup next week. He projects his QB6 still right now in the Walter Picks app. And then Drake May on the other side, I like him a lot this week too. He's coming off a 26-point game. I think the Dolphins definitely up there for the worst defense in the league. They got a couple stops against the Bills on Thursday night, but there were so many plays where, like, there's 7 yards of separation for these receivers running down the field. I mean, they cannot play defense, the Miami Dolphins, this season. The Steelers defense, though, has not looked good either. We saw Justin Fields cook them in week 1. People are already, by the way, talking about Tyrod Taylor stealing the Jets job. Like, can we slow down a little bit? We've seen 1.5 games from Justin Fields that people are already like, yeah, let's bench him.
He was good in game 1 as well.
Yeah, he's great in game 1.
He scored like 32 points. It's not his fault they lost.
2.5 quarters in game 3, and people are saying Tyrod Taylor, over. It's like really crazy to me. But yeah, we saw Darnold go for 17.8, Fields go for 30 against the Steelers defense. It really has looked kind of just slow this season. And like there's no reason to think the Steelers offense gets stopped in this game. I think like really sneaky shootout potential between the Patriots and the Steelers with how bad the defenses have been and how like decent the offenses have looked. It definitely feels like it should be an offensive game. I think I go Daniel Jones still though, man. I'm just not willing to bench him right now. May feels like a little safer matchup wise, but the situation for Daniel Jones is too good to ignore. Which side would you go here? We have them projected really close, 0.3 points apart.
Yeah, I'm definitely going Daniel Jones. That was actually one of the props I took myself, was just his fantasy points on I think it was on Underdog. Just like it was like 17.5 fantasy points. I paired that up with free square, so I didn't put a ton of cash on it, but I do like Daniel Jones a lot this week. He's been awesome. He's been awesome against good teams and bad teams. He's rushing the ball a lot, so I just trust him a little bit more than so many other options. Plus, he's quarterback 2. Again, if you go from the worst defense in the league, maybe the Dolphins, and you score 26 points, and you only lose 4 points when you go against Denver, that to me is a very strong shout. And like you said, supporting cast. You can't stop Jonathan Taylor. It's like the Eagles almost. It really is a very Eagles-esque offense. You've got Jonathan Taylor and Daniel Jones. When they're doing some play action or some handoff fakes or some read option, who do you stop? The only person that can stop Daniel Jones is probably Daniel Jones at this point. So I think I'm going to lock him into my lineups this week.
Yeah, crazy. Here we are in week 3, confidently starting with
lock him in. Let's go.
Mr. Daniel Jones. And I actually kind of agree with the app. I think Drake May's floor is higher than Daniel Jones just because of the matchup. But yeah, I'm still going Daniel Jones, I think, personally here. And then I tossed Jared Goff into this comparison quick because we got a question on the TikTok Live, Goff versus Drake May. And people, I think, rankings can be really misleading sometimes. And this is part of the reason I love being able to pull up the projections on the YouTube Live. If you're watching live on TikTok, guys, I'm telling you, come to the YouTube Live. Link is in the TikTok bio. I can share my screen on the YouTube Live. I can pull up comments on the screen on the YouTube Live. It's just a better viewing experience. All the same info, of course, being discussed. But Drake May ranks right now as QB8. Jared Goff is at QB7. Mm-hmm. And Daniel Jones at QB6. And so, like, I'll see comments all the time, like, why do you have Daniel Jones ranked way ahead of Drake May? Well, they're literally less than half a point apart. You got to rank these guys in a certain, like, in some order. They have to be ranked. Yeah. If people want the rankings, I get it. But yeah, the projections really add the context. But yeah, I agree with the order we have here. That the Lions-Ravens game is just so locked in to be high scoring that I think I'd lean Goff for the ceiling as well. I'm fine with what we have here of Drake May having to save his floor. He does have the rushing that Goff obviously doesn't have. Same thing with Daniel Jones. But I think I agree with the ordering here of Daniel Jones, then Goff, then May. There's no world where the Ravens don't score at least 30 points this week. And in those environments, I think we're going to be wanting to start Goff in the Lions offense. But yeah, would you start Goff over May?
Oh man, such a tough question. I don't think I would. I think I would go Drake May. So far, Drake May has just the better rushing floor, and that's what I really like to see. The Steelers haven't been that good on defense so far, and I do worry about the Lions a little bit. If you watched the game last week with the Lions, they got a free touchdown at the end of the half to Amon-Ra St. Brown. It was a bad officiating play. They got Tesla made a great catch, but he was down, touched inbounds, and that, I think, killed the Bears. Like, they gave them a free touchdown. They're up 14. The Lions ran away with it. I think they lost motivation. So against the Ravens, I think that they're going to be a little bit tougher than the Bears defense, and I could see Goff struggling. He does struggle when he's been down. Week 1, he was down. He was bad. I think he's going to get down week 2. I'm worried he's going to be bad again. So I would go Drake May over Goff because of the floor. Because if you're in a matchup where you need your quarterback to go off for a lot of points, I think Drake May have better boom potential as well. But I don't want to worry about Goff getting down the game and throwing some picks, which he has done a lot in the past.
Yeah, totally fair. I think it's very reasonable to start Drake May over Goff. It's definitely really, really close. I want to get to some of these Travis Etienne questions. Let me pull up the running back ranks here. I got the running back ranks. I'll pull up the wide receiver ranks actually as we talk through this. But this is a range of options here in this start sit question, but all very interesting, I think, to talk through, even though the answer seems clear. I think some of these Travis Etienne starts are really, really tough. But we got a Travis Etienne versus Trevion Henderson versus Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Matt, thanks for letting us know what the app is projecting as well. Do appreciate that. If we don't get your start sit, by the way, like, you got to go to the Walter Picks app and do your start sit analysis in there. It's going to customize for all your league settings. It is the best place for start sit research. But yeah, Etienne is like an easy start here. The Jaguars lead the NFL in rushing right now. It's another good matchup versus the Texans. I don't think they're going to lead the NFL this season. They've had a really good opening schedule, but that doesn't change today. They get the Texans. They rank bottom 6 against running backs this season in terms of points per game allowed. Their secondary has actually been like okay. They slowed down Mike Evans pretty successfully, but Bucky Irving went crazy. Rashad White had a good game as well. 3 different running backs have gone over 60 rushing yards. And Bucky Irving also had 6 catches for 50 yards. Wow. So he went over 100 total yards. I was like Kyron Williams score in week 1. They're allowing over 100 yards and a rushing touchdown and 5 catches per game to the running backs. And now they're playing the team that's leading the league in rushing. So yeah, ETN's definitely compelling to me. I'm more curious what you think about the second one here, Seth, between TreVeyon Henderson and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. This is TreVeyon Henderson, so far, one of my biggest misses of the season. He's, I think, my most rostered player across all of my leagues. I have some really difficult start sits with him this week, like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt versus, TreVeyon Henderson versus Harold Fannin. TreVeyon Henderson versus Rashid Shaheed. Like, these are the types of questions you got to be considering a bit with a guy only playing a third of the snaps and 3 running backs right now playing for the Patriots. So I'm curious what you think about these second 2. I assume you agree with ETN here.
Yeah, definitely ETN. I'm excited about him a lot.
Would you start Bill or TreVeyon Henderson?
Oh, man. If it was my team and I had to start one of these guys, I would probably go with Bill Krosky-Merritt today. The only reason being is with the injury, he was listed at the top of the depth chart this week. I think they give him a shot against the Raiders. The concern here for TreVeyon Henderson, and my hope is he proves me completely wrong and I can lock him in for week 3 or week 4. But the thing with Henderson is he just wasn't that involved last game. Week 1, he had 6 targets. So I think if you're searching for boom, like the biggest boom possible, Henderson could go for like 20 points. Like, I think Sam, maybe you missed on him. Honestly, week 1, he scored 11 points. That's not bad. So maybe your biggest miss is minus 5 points in week 2. That's not bad.
Yeah.
So I think Henderson's going to be fine.
I said biggest miss so far.
Yeah, so far.
I still think.
But it's not even that bad. Honestly.
Yeah, I still think the ceiling is going to. I mean, I drafted him as a locked-in starter. To be
That's
clear.
true. That's true.
In one of my high-stakes leagues is a 14-team league. I took him in the second round of that draft. This is not the performance you're looking for from your second round pick in fantasy. Same thing with Genty, right? Like when you're drafting these rookies early, like you're drafting them to produce right away if you're spending a first, second, third round pick on them. And here we are in week 3. And the reason I think it's definitely a miss, at least so far, I got you sitting here telling me to play a 7th round rookie pick who was, I think, taken in around 10 of most real drafts, and over my second round pick and second NFL round pick in TreVeyon Henderson. It's rough right now in terms of the expectations for him. He's not playing enough to really be a locked-in fantasy starter. I would play TreVeyon Henderson over Bill Krosky-Merritt, but it is close. And I don't think it's that crazy to see Krosky-Merritt outscore him here this week. To me, the ceiling is higher for Henderson still. And I think of these 2 guys, the guy that's more likely to have a big receiving day is TreVeyon Henderson.
I would agree with that.
I mean, Krosky-Merritt's going to touch the ball more than TreVeyon Henderson today, like almost definitely, right? Like he's going to get at least 10 touches. You cannot say that about TreVeyon Henderson right now. Ramondre Stevenson also played really, really well last week. There's no reason to think he doesn't stay really involved against the Steelers. And my big concern right now for Henderson is really Antonio Gibson and the role that he played last week. He returned a kick. Gibson, he actually looked pretty good last week in the role that he played. And if this turns into a 3 running back backfield, Gibson's also capable of catching passes. All of a sudden, Henderson's going to be completely unstartable, like completely untrustworthy. Gibson had 5 carries and just 1 target last week. He only ran 1 route. But yeah, like if he starts to eat in, Gibson was on the field before Henderson last week. Henderson was the 3rd running back on the field. I was getting chirped in my fantasy group chats that I drafted the 3rd string Patriots running back in the 2nd round, and they're not wrong. He was on the field 3rd among the running back group. Obviously would take him over Gibson rest of the season. He's not really the 3rd running back, but yeah, rough stuff so far for Henderson. I'm starting over Bill, like almost just out of capitulation. I'm not ready to go there in benching Henderson for a 7th round rookie draft pick. But yeah, that's rough, man. This is 2 straight weeks now. I'm being told to bench TreVeyon Henderson on this live. Let's hope it's not the same fate as last week with Avery. Good morning, fellas. Start Rome Odunze or Drake London. Before I even pull it up, Seth, who are you taking here?
Oh, this one for me is easy. And I think you drafted 2 amazing wide receivers here, but I am locking in Rome Odunze.
Yeah.
He has been lights out. I think 10 targets week 1, 9 targets week 2, or maybe 11 and 9, something like that, where he's been dominant. He's getting open. The air yards are insane. The team is going to be passing a lot against Dallas today, where London, on the other hand, amazing player, but are the Falcons going to rush for 200 yards today? Probably. So that's why I lean away from Drake London, even though he's one of my favorite players this year, especially talent-wise.
I don't know if you were tuned into the beginning of the live, but I think I actually might have talked about that Falcons game first. And the first question I had on there was over under 200 rushing yards for the Falcons today. So we're in lockstep here, but like I think that's a real line. Like that could easily go over. I think Algier and
he's going to crush too. Yeah,
easily both go like near 100 yards today. This is an interesting one with the rookie running backs. I did want to just talk about the rookie running backs a little bit more, just broadly too, in terms of fantasy football. There's widespread panic in the fantasy football streets right now about the rookie running backs. Tootin is one of the guys that's sort of rising right now, and people aren't necessarily panicked about him, but people are fully panicked on RJ Harvey. People are fully panicked on Ashton Genty. People are fully panicked on Marion Hampton, fully panicked on Trevion Henderson as well. Judkins and Tootin, these are and Scatterbo, these are the 3 guys that are sort of rising right now. That's 7 rookies that are like very fantasy relevant here in this running back class. We didn't even mention several of them too. Bill Krosky-Merritt, people are starting.
Caleb Johnson.
Caleb Johnson.
I don't know if you mentioned him, but
we said our prayer Caleb Johnson earlier. Yeah. Rest in peace, Caleb Johnson for this season, at least. But yeah, I mean, I'm not buying into the panic across the board here, literally across the board. Caleb Johnson, sure, you can drop him. I honestly think his ceiling is still kind of high.
I didn't drop him. I think he'll have a
yeah. Depends how deep the league is. I still think there's like a real ceiling eventually when it gets a role, but he has no role. Obviously, he's going to be inactive today. But the other guys, to me, all of these guys still have like a pretty good chance to win leagues down the stretch, and you drafted them to win leagues down the stretch. This is the whole reason to draft the rookies. Like I was saying earlier, if you spent an early round pick, like you're off to a bad start. Like you did draft Genty early and Hampton early and Henderson early to start them right away. And you can't really do that as confidently as we were hoping. But yeah, you can't sell low. You can't drop them. And to me, like I'm buying, especially in leagues where I'm 2-0. I'm going to the league analyzer and the Walter Picks app. If I see my playoff probabilities over 90%, I'm already trading for the playoffs because I know that's all that matters in fantasy football. And some of these guys are going to win leagues. Like at least 2 of these guys, these rookies that people are panicking on right now, to me are going to win leagues.
I agree.
That was a long rant. I don't know if you it sounds like you generally agree with that though. Harvey versus Tootin versus Henderson. Wow. We have Henderson like pretty far ahead here. I feel like it, in my mind's a little closer than these projections suggest, but the role for Harvey, like all 3 of these guys, right? They're probably all playing around like a third of the snaps. Right now, 33% snap percentage for Harvey. Let's actually just scroll down here and compare the roles here. Rushing stats, the rush share is highest for Harvey. They're all in the 4 to 6 carries per game range. Yards per carry has been to RJ Harvey. He has like 1 really long run, I think, 1 or 2 long runs. I think the receiving stats, Henderson's just had the biggest receiving role here, but Tootin scored the touchdown last week on one of his catches. He's definitely a capable receiving back. I think it looks like he has 2 catches. One of them went for like a 30-yard touchdown.
It was a nice play.
Small stat. Yeah, definitely. And I said earlier, Tootin reminds me of Chris Johnson. Like the 100th percentile speed.
It's crazy.
Able of scoring at any time he touches the ball. And he's like actually a pretty capable receiving back too. A pretty exciting player for sure. Yeah, I think I have to agree with the app here with Henderson, but to me, it's like pretty close. I'd probably rank them as Henderson, then Tootin, then Harvey right now for this week. But yeah, how would you approach this start sit, Seth?
Well, I'm definitely sitting Harvey. Like that one's the easy one for me. He's facing the Chargers, and guys, matchup matters. Maybe, I mean, for me, from my perspective, more than ever in fantasy football. I think matchup, especially for the running backs, matters so much. I probably would play Tootin today. If we look at can we look at his game log on the Walter Picks app? That's on the YouTube, guys. Week 1, he wasn't really involved much at all. And if we look at his snap share, that's what I want to dive into.
Snaps. He only played 4 total snaps. That went up to 25%, 18 snaps. And when he was out there, he
was awesome. He was running through tacklers. He is running by tacklers. he scored that touchdown, and he looks incredible. Like, honestly, like you said, he's just looks electric out there. And ETN looks great as well. And I think that's going to be a big part of the strategy to get today against Houston. So I think I would go Tootin. I do think that, like, with the roll jump that he had from week 1 to week 2, I like the positive momentum where Henderson kind of had a roll decrease. And I'm going to ride the momentum here with both players kind of questionable. I'll go with the guy that's kind of been stepping up each week.
Yeah, totally fair. I mean, they're definitely going in slightly opposite directions right now. I would expect Henderson's receiving role to still be a little bit larger volume wise. The matchup is really good for both guys.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, Tootin he played 18 snaps, and he over half those snaps they tried to get him the ball. Eight carries,
looks so good too.
2 targets, and that's the type of player he is, right? And the type of
Yeah.
weapon he can be for the Jags, who do kind of need to find the like weapons on offense. If Travis Hunter's not going to be making explosive plays, Brian Thomas Jr. is having a bad game, like it's going to have to be Bashaw Tootin or Brenton Strange, like stepping up. De'Ami Brown stepped up last week a bit as well. But yeah, Tootin is he's the most explosive player on this team. He's one of the most explosive players in the league. 100th percentile speed. I mean, like the Chris Johnson comparison does not come lightly for me, at least. But yeah, I still think I'd go Henderson, but I think a very fair argument over Tootin. He's the better matchup, the ascending role. Henderson has a good matchup, slightly worse, and a like slightly cratering role. At least last week took a tiny bit of a step back.
I think he'll bounce back some. I still think Tootin, like, they traded Tank Bigsby away for a reason. It's because Tootin is so good, and he kind of proved that last week. So we'll see. Again, I like for all 3 of these guys, if you got them on your team, we're not trading them away. We're trying to trade for them, and hopefully they all have great weeks, and we can start locking them in.
All right, Seth, I know we're coming up on time soon. I want to get to this question real quick since we haven't talked about Ted McMillan at all. Then I want to get to some tight end questions since a lot of people are curious about this Tucker Kraft ranking. I'm curious on your take on Tucker Kraft specifically, and it's just some of those like tight end 6 through tight end 12 range.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a really interesting one to me because if Jennings is in, I want to start Ted for sure here. I'm starting Ted over Pearsall like pretty easily, I think, if Juwan Jennings is playing. Right now, I'm operating under the mindset Juwan Jennings isn't playing. So like if I were to put it odds on Jennings playing too, let me just refresh the news feed here too to make sure we haven't had any recent reports. Juwan Jennings listed as questionable for today's game due to shoulder ankle. He will not play and will be out.
All right, there we go.
An official Adam Schefter report. Looks like we were on the right side of this one. As we talked about, typically we are with these.
See if your app updates the rankings. I bet some of them won't.
Yeah, 100%. So we know now Jennings is out. That was a Schefter bomb from 27 minutes ago. That's locked in. So we got Pearsall as the leading receiver. Then it goes Kendrick Bourne, and then Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore / Malik Turner with Jake Tungus at tight end. I mean, I don't know how you bench Pearsall with that being the environment, the team environment that he's on. What's the floor target share for Pearsall in this game? It's 20%, like at minimum. And I think
that's going to say 30%. It's the floor.
I don't know if that's his floor. Like he's barely been over 20% in a game so far this season, but yeah.
Week 1, Kittle played. In week 2,
Jennings played.
Kittle's out. Jennings played.
Right.
So this is his first week with Kittle and Jennings out. So the targets are going to be pretty insane.
Yeah, and if we just go to, so I'll go back to this. In week 1, I mean, Kittle only played like half the game too, but he scored in that game. But we don't even have him on here since he's on IR. But yeah, I think he had like a 15% target share. Mm-hmm. And then last week, Jennings was at like 20%
and scored a touchdown as well.
26%. Right? And he had 10 targets. Yeah, I mean, I'm starting Pearsall here. I really like Tet. Dude, AJ Terrell is out today for the Falcons. That's the top corner for the Falcons. Bryce Young is like, I had conflicting takes when I talked about the Panthers. I said very, very nervous about Bryce Young. Like, no faith really in him right now, but I have a ton of confidence in Tet. Those things are a little bit at odds. Obviously, we can see both come true, but I'm going Pearsall for sure here.
This one is tough because I love Tet this week. His one of the things I love in the Walter Picks app is the air yards and the yards per target, yards per route run, and you'll see that Tet is very strong in those categories. I guess he's not getting as many air yards as Pearsall. Pearsall has been pretty legit as well, but Tet's looked awesome. So kudos to you, Drew, for drafting both these players. I think you're set up extremely well. If you're benching one, maybe there's some opportunity for trades here to upgrade your team, or you're set for bye weeks too. But, man, with AJ Terrell out. I really want to play Tet just based on him getting about 10 targets. He's been a little bit more consistent and a little bit better. So that it's hard to bench him. I mean, if we go look at his targets as well, he's been like really consistent at like that's
nine
elite,
and
9
nine
and
targets,
10.
10 targets. I honestly think like
Yeah,
zooming out just a tiny bit, like Tet's just like a better version, a better wide receiver version of Pearsall. He's a little bit bigger.
it's a good call.
I think they're both really, really good after the
Both
cap.
first rounders as well.
Yeah, both first rounders. Obviously, Tet went a tiny bit earlier in the draft. But yeah, I'm going Pearsall this week. Probably would take Tet rest of the season, though. I'd like really.
Yeah, I would agree for sure.
Bryce Young looking pretty rough, I would say, to start the season. He ended up throwing the ball 55 times last week, too, which is definitely skewing things a tiny bit. Just it was a weird game for the Panthers and Cardinals with how many plays the Panthers ended up running versus the Cardinals. But yeah, you got to feel really, really good, I think, about Tet. This is the types of guys I want in fantasy are the guys that can score 15 plus points without a touchdown.
Right.
And that's exactly what we're already seeing from Tet, going for 6 catches, 100 yards in his second career game and struggling quarterback. So yeah, I feel good about Tet.
I think I am going to go Pearsall, though. One of the things that looking at the game log, the Atlanta Falcons rush attack, like their defensive rushing, so they're pressuring the quarterback is what I'm trying to say here, is really strong. It's been really good this year, and Tet needs to get down the field a little bit more. So I actually kind of like Hunter Renfrow a little bit this week. He's been pretty good. So I'll go Pearsall. I think just like the offensive line is going to stand up a little bit better and give Pearsall a little bit more time to work than we might see for Tet. So I'll go Pearsall this week, but I love them both. So Drew, I think that's a great question.
If you got tight end start sits, throw those in the chat.
Drop a like as well, guys. Make sure you're liking this stream. Drop a like on the TikTok. We're going to get to these questions here for tight ends.
Yeah, definitely a quick like. It helps us out a ton, like way more than I think people realize. Also, definitely subscribe to the channel if you're watching live on YouTube. We're posting a ton of content on YouTube. We have 3 weekly live streams, one from Seth, one from Avery, one from me every single week. And we have at least 2 videos going out every single week, a trade advice video and a start sit video on this channel. We're grinding here on the YouTube content. So definitely hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on all the content. If you want to actually have a chance to win your fantasy league, this is going to be some of the best content to get. All right, some difficult tight end start sits today. Before the tight ends, this one's saying, I think we would probably say Cooper Kupp over Tillman today. All right, let's get to Ertz versus Ferguson is one question we got here. Let me pull up the tight end ranks. As we
you guys always have the toughest questions, man. This is
that's brutal. We do not take simple start sits here on this live stream. But I love getting to the start sits, man. I think
for sure.
My goal every Sunday morning, wake up, I say I'm going to get to more start sit questions than any other person out there today. And I think we're well on our way so far this Sunday. These guys are back to back in the ranks. To me, like I'm just going to start the guy that doesn't have a backup QB playing. There's just an additional layer of
I think that's fair.
With Ertz, Jake Ferguson's coming off a really good game. I was just talking about you want guys that can score 15 points without a touchdown. That's what we got from Ferg last week. How many
targets did he have? Like 16?
He had 12 targets.
12, okay.
Not
quite 16, but that's crazy.
These Cowboys stats, it's like all these guys are 8+ targets, but under 25% target share because there's just so many pass attempts in this game. But yeah, he had 12 targets last week, got 9 of those for 78 yards.
Yeah, incredible.
No touchdown, was tight end 3 on the week. And a good matchup here versus the Bears. And they've been okay versus tight ends, but just in general, the defense is really bad. I'm more curious about like this range of guys, Ertz, Fannin, and I want to pull in Tucker Kraft here too. We have ranked really low, just out of some caution around the knee injury. I mean, this is like one of those situations. It's super tough to try to project right because the injury happened Thursday in practice. So nobody actually saw the injury. Initially, it sounded like people were fearing the worst.
Not season ending, they said.
Yeah, the initial report was not a season-ending injury, like indicating. I think initially when we first saw the report, we projected him out 2 games. That was our initial projections team response, just based on the initial reporting. Then he doesn't practice Friday. Does not practice, which is usually a really, really bad sign. We just talked about that with Juwan Jennings. That's why we were projecting Juwan Jennings out. That ended up being right. But Kraft is playing today, so he didn't practice after a somewhat scary knee injury, but he's playing today. So we're projecting him for a little bit lower of a target share than we had otherwise because of that. They might not push him to his limit given the scare he had in practice this week. He's been playing over 90% of the snaps. He had a 26% target share last week, 18% in week 1. We're projecting for 16%. So if you disagree with us, if you think he's fine, he's going to play every single snap, he's really a must-start tight end. Like
Yeah,
if he's
lock
going
him
to be in
in
the role
if
he's
that's
been
what
in,
you think.
you got to start him. So you got to understand the assumptions behind, the rankings and the projections. I love trying to give people the insight into that on this live stream, but I think you got to have at least some concern that the role is going to be lower. Why against the Cleveland Browns as massive favorites would you push Tucker Kraft coming off a scary practice knee injury to his limit, right? Like it just doesn't make logical sense for an NFL team to do that unless he really is like 100% fine, but he didn't practice Friday. He can't be 100% fine if he didn't practice at all on Friday. So yeah, that's really where this Tucker Kraft rankings come from. It's literally all speculation about how serious or not serious the knee injury is. The initial reporting was pretty concerning. The fact he didn't practice Friday was pretty concerning. The fact that he's playing today is obviously a really good sign. But I prefer to start the guys that I am confident are going to be in their normal roles. So yeah, I would start Fannin and Ertz over him for that reason. I just prefer to bench Kraft just this week, just in case the role ends up being like half potentially of what it was. That's my take on the Kraft situation and the reasoning for why he's ranked so low. Yeah, I'm curious. Are you starting Kraft in a spot like this over Fannin, over Ertz?
Oh man, it's a tough question because Kraft's potential, I think, is a lot better. Obviously, we have the lower boom probability that has to do with the injury. And I agree, though. I have the same question. Actually working with my wife for her fantasy football team today, and we've been looking at the Kraft injury. It's like, do we want to go for him? We ended up going with another tight end as well. We had Juwan Johnson, so be active on your waiver wires can make this a little bit easier. But I would still bench Kraft if you can. Like if you're projected even, you're projected to win, I would bench Kraft because the chance for him to just do nothing is high, especially with Cleveland. I don't know if Cleveland scores, right? It may just take one field goal for the Packers to win this game. Harold Fannin, I do like a lot. Like the Browns will be throwing the entire game, and then Zach Ertz. I'm scared of the backup quarterback. So this is the one guy who has the same quarterback that he's had in the past. So I think I would go with Fannin in this spot. Ertz is interesting. The Raiders are going to let up some more points. So if you want the touchdown upside, you got to play Ertz. But I think Fannin is your safest play if you're just like, hey, give me 8 points. The rest of my players can take care of business, and I'm going to win my week. But if you're like, I need 20, Ertz would probably be my guy. And I think Kraft stands out as someone that's a little bit too risky for me this week.
Yeah, sounded like your dogs agreed there
yes,
as well.
They 100%.
As well said. I do think I would lean Fannin, honestly, in this spot, too. We have Ertz projected a little bit better. I like just seeing Ertz in the rankings, really like this whole offseason and still this season, it just seems wrong to me. But when you look at all the underlying assumptions, like, no, this is where he should be ranked. Like, this is where he should project. He's been really good for the last year plus now. But yeah, Harold Fannin, I just like the role he's going to have to play in this game. We just saw the Packers have actually not been great against tight ends, partially for this reason. They get so much pressure. You have to get it up quick. And the tight ends are often those guys. And Njoku's playing more of a deep threat tight end role. Fannin's playing more of a quick pass, chess piece role in the offense. I think that benefits him. I think the floor 100%. Is good here for him as well. He did play a little bit less last week. And I think part of that was Judkins being back since he got some snaps at running back in week 1. That's not really going to happen, I don't think, moving forward. But yeah, I feel good about Fannin here. I'm benching Kraft. I'm definitely I just want to wait and see. If I have another top 10 tight end, if I have Juwan Johnson, if I have Harold Fannin or Zach Ertz, I'm very comfortable to wait and see, lock in at least, some known role. And then I'm going right back to Kraft. I think if you saw when I was scrolling down there, Kraft projects tight end 3 rest of the season right now.
He's going to be awesome.
Right after Bowers and McBride. But yeah, there's so much unknown since the injury happened in practice too. Just want to see how it ends up looking. Okay. Last start sit here for you, Seth. Then we'll get any bold take or prop from you, and we'll let
I've got one of each, so I'm ready.
Nice, love to hear that. This is an interesting one though, and I know you're pretty high on Keenan Allen in general, so I'm curious.
Yeah, I love Keenan Allen. He was one of my must drafts of the year so far. That's been one of my biggest correct takes because he's been elite so far. This is a great question.
For sure, definitely a huge hit. He's been one of my best ball hits too since I start drafting just egregiously early every year. Best ball, I start drafting in May, and I was drafting a ton of Keenan Allen in May and then June and then July, and he hadn't signed, and I had 20% of Keenan Allen on my teams in round 15, 16, 17. And then I started to get really nervous as we got closer to the season that I had 20% of my teams on a guy that's not even going to be on a team in the NFL. And then it became clear he was going to sign with the Chargers, and I drafted as much as I could up until that point. Then he shot up to the 12th round once he signed, and that was even too late for Keenan Allen. So yeah, definitely a huge hit with where he was getting drafted, especially before he signed for the people drafting egregiously early like me. But Keenan Allen, Emeka Egbuka, and DK Metcalf. The app has Metcalf by 2 points ahead, and then Egbuka and Keenan just like in deadlock here. Keenan's got the highest ceiling projected here. I'm not sure I agree with that, but that is how it's been so far, this year for Keenan, the comparison of the roles. Metcalf's got the best matchup. I don't think Keenan goes up against Surtain, though.
I don't think so either.
Playing and against the Broncos. So yeah, I'm curious what you think about this one, then I'll give my take.
Oh, absolutely brutal start sit. Let me start with that. You guys are killing it on this live. It's tougher than I expected. I was like, I got this, and questions like this come up. I think I'd go Keenan if it were me. I've been watching these Steelers games, and really in the last game for the Steelers, DK Metcalf, he had just a couple catches. Both of them were like complete toss-up balls to him. One of them was on a flag where Aaron Rodgers could just whip it. And the other one, it was close, man. It was a very dangerous ball. So I'm a little bit worried about DK. He's a hard player to get the ball to. And I think New England knows, hey, if we stop DK, who else? Who's going to beat us? Jalen Warren? It's Jalen Warren and DK. So I think he's going to have so much defensive focus, even if it's not from Christian Gonzalez, that DK is going to, he could have a good game. But I am a little bit more worried about him. Keenan has like 10 targets. He's been extremely efficient, effective, and scoring touchdowns. I mean, what else could you ask for? He has the best volume. He's been scoring touchdowns. He's on a team that's probably going to score the most points out of all three of these guys. So I would play Keenan Allen. I love him, as you said at the beginning, Sam. Egbuka, I'm a little bit scared about. Woodrow, you did mention Egbuka has with Evans having the soft shadow. But I still think Egbuka, he's had about 6 targets a game. He's averaging 6.5 targets a game, 4 receptions a game. Keenan Allen just has more targets, more receptions, and his also scoring touchdowns. So I would go with Keenan Allen here, especially if Surtain covers somebody else. It's like, well, obviously, Keenan Allen's going to get the ball.
Yeah, really interesting start to the season for DK Metcalf. I know we talked about it on the projections team after week 1, but it's just like really unique role for Metcalf in week 1 from what we've seen in the past, right? He wasn't getting targets deep down the field, but they were scheming touches to him in the short area, and he had 68 yards after the catch. Like, he was actually being really effective with those scheme targets after the catch, but like really not getting the normal like deep targets. And then last week, not super dissimilar, only 45 air yards, but still 6 targets. Ends up scoring in the revenge game. Otherwise, would have been a really rough game.
Some drops too.
But yeah, I have zero confidence the Patriots are able to even focus in on a receiver right now. Jacoby Myers went for 97 and 8 catches against them. Tyreek Hill and Waddle both went over 15 fantasy points against them. Trey Tucker went for 13 points. DK Metcalf is going to have 15 plus points in this game against the Patriots. If this game ends up being anywhere near the shootout, I think it could be. To me, this is like the first real game we might see like Metcalf's back to a somewhat normal role and kind of what we expected, maybe some more deep targets. But even if it's scheme touches, he could do well. But it's pretty crazy looking at this comparison here and some of the stats so far this season. I mean, Keenan's clearly been better than both these guys, just from a statistical perspective. Better in air yards, way better in yards per out run. He's wide receiver 12 in yards per out run this season. He's got more targets and catches per game, a little bit less efficient in terms of yards per reception. This touchdown rate too, I mean, just ridiculous here from Emeka Egbuka. He's caught a touchdown on more than 1 out of every 3 catches this season, a 37% touchdown rate. I mean, I don't think I've seen a more unsustainable stat today looking throh the Walter Pick stat than this, especially when Godwin comes back. But yeah, I think I would go Metcalf, then Keenan, then Egbuka. That's how I would have it. But I also, like, as those of you who tuned into this show many times in the past, like, I chase the ceiling. And to me, the ceiling for Metcalf is just really high here versus the Patriots. But I think Seth makes fair points there with Keenan as well. And the app even has Keenan ceiling higher because all those stats we just looked at have been better so far this season. So yeah, that's definitely a tough one. We get nothing but tough start sits on the live. So Avery, Seth, I want to give you the floor to see if you can match Avery's performance on the live last week. Who Avery made a very compelling argument why TreVeyon Henderson was a bench last week. That ended up being a really good call. So yeah, I'm curious, what's your favorite player prop today, and a bold take you have as well for your parting thoughts?
Yeah, I'll start with the player prop. So again, guys, the way I like to do my research is I do check every game, but I just go right to the Walter Picks app, to the player prop evaluator, and I find my favorite, and then I do some extra research on that. So I went to the prop value today, And my favorite one that wasn't already written up, there were 3 write-ups, and I actually liked all 3 of those as well. But it was Dylan Sampson over 1.5 receptions. Week 1, Sampson had 8 receptions. Judkins didn't play, so I don't count that one all the way. But what I do know is that the Browns had 9 targets to running backs. In week 2, the Browns had 12 targets to running backs. And facing the Packers this week in their 4-man rush, I think getting the ball outside the tackle box to the running backs, Judkins included, Ford included, who had, I believe, 6 targets last week, and Sampson is going to be a key strategy versus running up the middle. So I am going to go with Sampson. He had 3 catches, I believe, last week as well on 3 targets. So I see them trying to run through the pass a little bit this week. So that was my favorite prop of the week, is Dylan Sampson over 1.5 receptions.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. I mean, it's rare to get plus odds on a prop like this for a guy he's beat this prop both games. Obviously, they're accounting for the Judkins role increasing here, but there's one thing very clear from the Browns in the first 2 games is that they view Sampson as a receiving back. Like they really think he is a good receiving back, and that wasn't clear coming out of college. He was in a weird offense at Tennessee that doesn't really throw to the running backs much, just in general. So it's just a bit of an unknown, not unknown anymore. I mean, this is a good receiving back in the NFL. Jerome Ford also catches passes. Quinshon Judkins will also catch passes. I actually like him over 1.5 receptions also, but I think these both can hit. And we've talked about it already, multiple times now in this live. Like, you got 3 seconds to throw the ball here against the Packers today. That's going to be Harold Fannin, Dylan Sampson, Quinshon Judkins, and Jerome Ford. I think all 3 running backs could easily beat this line today, and you're getting the plus odds. And this is part of the reason I think that, the Walter Picks app is really, really powerful. I think it's hard sometimes to wrap your head around how much the odds matter. The odds matter so much. You can see it just in this example on Hard Rock. We're getting plus 125 odds.
Yeah.
On FanDuel, it's only plus 108. It's like a third of the value on FanDuel versus Hard Rock. I mean, just a huge difference, especially in the long run, if you're able to get the best odds. One of my biggest pieces of advice to people when they can, if you're not in a state like Florida with just a full-on monopoly on sports betting, try to shop for the best odds, and you just will win more in the long run. But yeah, I like this one for sure. I think Judkins will have a bigger role today, but Sampson's still definitely going to be involved. All right, so that's the free player prop from Seth. Seth, what do you think about your bold take for the week?
Bold take of the week is that the Bengals are going to be pretty good on offense this week. The way I said it in my head is the Bengals are still going to bangle today. Jake Browning didn't look, he didn't look great last week, but he didn't look bad. He threw 2 touchdowns, I believe. He scored 20 fantasy points coming in halfway through the game, threw for 241 yards. That's not nothing. He has the best, maybe 3-headed monster in the league with Chase Brown, who's been getting 90% plus of the rush share, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. So I do like Jake Browning this week to be, I'm starting him over a couple different players in a quarterback where I've got injuries, and I'm still starting T. Higgins. I'm starting Chase Brown. I'm starting Jamar Chase. You look at what the Minnesota Vikings have faced this season. I forget if we have who the Vikings have played. Last week, I know they played against the Falcons, who certainly struggled with Michael Penix Jr. But they could still run the ball. They
played the Bears week 1.
Yeah, and they played the Bears week 1. And the Bears had that huge collapse, but the Bears started off really strong as well. So I think the Vikings will look at what the Falcons did last week in the run game and really get Chase Brown going. I think they'll look at what the Bears did week 1 earlier on in the game, in the pass game, and kind of combine those two together to have a really solid week. I would not be surprised if the Bengals won this game. They are underdogs, but for fantasy football in particular, I think that you definitely can start your Bengals players today.
Would you start Jake Browning or Marcus Mariota?
Oh, easily Jake Browning. I started Jake Browning over Aaron Rodgers today. Wow. So I have Jake Browning as a pretty high-end start for me.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think it's bold, and I asked for a bold take, so I appreciate you bringing a bold take. And I like Jake Browning rest of season. I think he's definitely going to have value in Superflex leagues. Obviously, the supporting cast is incredible. I'm nervous about the matchup, though, definitely more than you are with the matchup against the Vikings, how well they've stopped the pass so far this season. Caleb Williams did okay week 1, but he also ran a ton. He had 60 rushing touchdown there too. Mariota, I think, just a slightly safer floor to me because of the rushing. The matchup is, I think, better as well. I would definitely take Browning rest of the season. Let's assume Mariota's starting rest of the season and Browning starting rest of the season. It's probably close, honestly, with the rushing from Mariota still there. But yeah, the environment for Browning is just so good. So yeah, a good bold take there from Seth before he hopped off the live. Seth, thank you so much for joining. Definitely, we'll look to have you on the live again in the future. Hopefully, I can hop on yours at some point as well. But yeah, have a great Sunday, and thank you so much for the time this morning.
Yeah, thank you. Good luck, everyone, with your matchup this week.
And there we have it. I appreciate Seth joining today. Jake Browning and the Bengals offense, his bold take. I like that Dylan Sampson line a lot that he shared as well. Let me pull up the wide receiver rankings, see some people asking for that. All right, we are 45 minutes away from football on our TV screens. We're entering the rapid fire segment of the live stream. Let me just catch us up on the news that was reported while Seth was on the live. Cam Scatterbo is going to get more snaps here in week 3. That's not really news. That is expected. That's exactly what happened last week. And for all of the negativity surrounding the rookie running back class right now, there's actually a lot of positivity out there too. Cam Scatterbo last week, 14 points versus the Dallas Cowboys, played 52% of snaps. They're saying this is going to rise here in week 3. I mean, he could be a legit RB2 in fantasy football. A tough matchup versus the Chiefs. I still don't really want to start him against the Chiefs, but I feel like Cam Scatterbo brings a real identity to this Giants rushing attack that Tyrone Tracy sort of lacks. He's a really good receiving back too. I think an underrated receiving back. He only had 2 catches last week. But I do think that what we saw from him in college suggests he's a really good receiving back. Interesting report there about Cam Scatterbo. We got the Jawan Jennings officially is out report, which is exactly what we were projecting anyways. I think that's pretty much it here for the news. Caleb Johnson is active today. I guess that's news. We did say rest in peace to Caleb Johnson earlier. Trey Sermon is also active. So we still might get a 0 snap game here from Caleb Johnson. So we're not taking back the RIP Caleb Johnson. All right. We're back, Sam. Hampton or Dobbins in PPR this week? You got to go Dobbins. You got to go Dobbins over Hampton, I think. Is Weatherman Sam with us? Need kicker rankings? Yeah. We do got kicker rankings in the Walter Picks app. You can check those out. I won't talk too much about them on the live stream. But I think you kind of have to go Dobbins over Hampton. Yeah, they rank really close. Same game here. Revenge game for Dobbins, though. Hampton is right now trending in the wrong direction. I still like Hampton, the winning ceiling rest of season over Dobbins. But yeah, Dobbins this week for me over Marion Hampton. And yeah, Weatherman Sam's here for you all season, man. Weatherman Sam's here. And we did already get the Weatherman Sam report. I'll run through it again really quickly, though. The high level here is 0 concern. No weather concern across the league. My goal with the Weatherman Sam reports is 1, make sure you guys are informed and not surprised about whatever weather we get on our TV screens in like an hour. And then number 2, make sure we don't over or underreact to the weather. That's the real tough part in fantasy football, in player props, in betting. You don't want to under or overreact to the weather. I think people tend to overreact to the weather. Rain doesn't really matter unless it's like extreme rain. Snow doesn't really matter unless it's extreme snow. Wind doesn't really matter unless it's wind over 25 miles an hour. We got none of that today. We have possible rain in the Colts-Titans game, possible rain in the Saints-Seahawks game, possible rain in the Cowboys-Bears game. But again, possible rain. It's not really any chance that it's raining like the whole game in any of these games. And all 3 of these games, there's a chance there's no rain at all. That's the type of rain we're looking at. There's also some potential wind, 15 to 20 mile an hour wind gusts in the Packers-Browns game, 15 to 20 mile an hour wind gusts in the Texans-Jaguars game. No real wind concern here. This is wind gusts, and it's not even hitting 25 plus miles an hour. Not concerned at all. Not concerned at all. That's the Weatherman Sam report today. Brian Thomas Jr., Drake London. I'm going Brian Thomas Jr. over Drake London. A little bit nervous about the matchup for Drake London today. The Panthers have been really, really good against receivers. Ridley or Troy Franklin. I'm going Ridley over Troy Franklin. I do like the Franklin prop, but I like the Ridley play in fantasy. I think, Seth actually talked me out of Ridley pretty effectively on the live. I was pretty ready to go in on Ridley today, and then he brought up Cortland Sutton's game from last week, and it does have me like just a little bit spooked about Calvin Ridley in the floor for Ridley today. Yeah, I like the Troy Franklin prop over 3.5 receptions too. Not going to project quite as good. And the Colts haven't been like amazing against receivers. Troy Franklin just popped off against the Colts last week. But Cortland Sutton, he had 1 catch for 6 yards against the Colts. Tyreek Hill, he had 4 catches for 40 yards against the Colts. They've really shut down back-to-back games the number 1 receiver for the opposing team, and that's Calvin Ridley today, who's not had a great start in 2 difficult matchups already. Like, we could just get another middling performance here from Calvin Ridley. I wouldn't knock you for going Troy Franklin here. I really wouldn't knock you for going Troy Franklin. All right, Mike Evans or Brian Thomas Jr. Oh, God, that one's actually pretty close. Let me go to the wide receiver ranks here. And we're going to turn on subscriber-only comment mode, too, on the TikTok Live. Make sure I get to those. Super fan, they're calling it now. Got it. Okay. Evans versus Brian Thomas Jr. My gut says Brian Thomas Jr. I think the rankings will agree. Yeah. Evans is due for sure to score. He had a ton of targets last week, and Stingley played pretty well on the Texans in the Texans secondary. He's back-to-back games over 10 points without a touchdown for Mike Evans. Yeah, he's got a 29% target share this season. Now he gets the Jets. I think I go Brian Thomas Jr. though. Yeah, versus the Texans. It's definitely a close one for sure. Really similar ceilings here as well. Ridley or Sutton? Yeah, I'm going Sutton over Ridley. I do think Sutton bounces back. Thoughts on Judkins' receptions? Jack, I like this line. I do. My favorite prop, Jack, of the day, Jack, I know you are on it with the Walter Picks app in terms of the player prop evaluator. I think Jack has probably won more consistently than most, like probably 99.9% of bettors out there. And a huge part of that I know has been the Walter Picks app. And I know you're like really effective at using it for the alt lines too. I do like Judkins' receptions line a lot. I think I saw it at plus odds or even odds at 1.5. He's getting multiple targets in this game. The Browns are going to have to throw the ball very quickly in this game. The same reason Seth was just talking about the Dylan Sampson receptions line. That's plus odds at 1.5. I like that too. I think I like the Judkins ones a little bit more, but the odds are probably worse. I really like the Luther Burden props today as well, and definitely an interesting one to ladder up rather than down. It's his baseline's at 7.5 yards. There's reports that he's going to have more of a package today. The role is expected to grow from 23 hours ago. His role doesn't need to grow to hit this 7.5 yards line. He could have the exact same role, get 1 catch, easily go over 7.5 yards. He's playing the Cowboys secondary that just allowed over 100 yards to Wan'Dale Robinson. If his role does grow, I mean, he could easily hit 25 or 40 yards. I think it was like plus 600 or plus 400 at 40 yards for Luther Burden. Those are my favorite plays of the day. Good morning, Sam. Pick 2, Kenneth Walker, Jalen Warren, or Jordan Mason. Kenneth Walker cannot be benched. Jordan Mason cannot be benched. You got to bench Jalen Warren here. I mean, there's just absolutely no benching Kenneth Walker or Jordan Mason. Both are top 10 running backs, I think, in the rankings. So Jordan Mason ranks at running back 11, just barely. I mean, there's some really good running backs ahead of him too. There's a tier break after Jordan Mason this week at running back. I really like Alvin Kamara too versus the Seahawks. A lot of these top running backs have really good matchups or just elite roles. Okay, let's get to Sutton, Pearsall, or Ferguson. You cannot bench Pearsall. Guys, Juwan Jennings is out. Pearsall ranks as wide receiver 7 right now. With Jennings out, there's just the floor is 20% target share. The ceiling's like a 40% target share here. It's him and McCaffrey, and then it goes to Kendrick Bourne, who's like an interesting DraftKings play on DFS, but like, you know, Kendrick Bourne is not going to take an elite target share. Jake Tungus is playing tight end because Kittle's out. There's no Ayuka the Bazooka for quite some time still too. I mean, Pearsall's just locked into a huge role here. Versus the Saints. They're not versus the Saints, excuse me, that was last week. Versus the Cardinals. He did his prop last week too versus the Saints, even with Jennings having a good game. Pick 2 in half PPR. T, Terry, JCM, and at QB, Love or Mariota. Happy Sunday. T. Higgins, Terry McLaurin, or JCM. Man, Seth's bold take has me a little bit more bullish on the Bengals. It's really close between him and Terry, though. I think I'd probably still go Terry. Yeah, I'd go Terry. Yeah, it's got to be Terry. McLaurin over T. And I'm playing both those guys over Corey Krosky-Merrick, who I'm still pretty skeptical of. I don't know if you guys saw the physical pain in my face and in my body as Seth told us to start Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt over Trevion Henderson. But man, gosh, just brutal stuff here in week 3 with people starting JCM over Trevion Henderson and that being like a rational take for someone to have. Love versus Mariota. This is a pretty interesting one as well. We're projecting Mariota pretty high in the Walter Picks app because he's going to run. His prop lines are like almost at 30 rushing yards. He's got a decent matchup. Jordan Love's got a bit of a scary matchup versus the Browns. I think I would go Mariota. Yeah, I think I'm going Mariota over Jordan Love. Better matchup, more rushing potential. I'm going Mariota. Definitely a bit of a risk for sure, but yeah, I lean Mariota in that spot. Egbuka or Tet at the flex. It's Tet, man. I feel really good about Tet for sure. Walter says JSN. JSN, Genty, or Chuba in the flex. Have Chase and Puka starting wide receiver and Mason and Brown at running back small league. Yeah, you can't bench JSN. Definitely playing JSN. Love or Goff? It's got to be Goff. Got to be Goff over Love for sure, guys. We're in the rapid fire section of this live stream. Shout out to you. If you've been here the whole time, seriously, appreciate you a ton. If you've been here just 5 minutes, also appreciate you as well. We're in the final stretch of the live, so I'm just trying to get you as many start sits as I possibly can. If I don't get to your start sit, you got to go to the Walter Picks app. It's the best place to do start sit research for sure. It's going to account for your league settings. It's going to give you all the stats and analysis, matchup data, everything you need to make the best start sit decision possible. Judkins or Hampton, leaning Judkins because they're likely to be trailing heavily. Yeah. I'm not sure it's going to matter for Judkins' role, honestly. If they're trailing heavily, I think they'll throw the ball to him. If the game's anywhere close, they're going to run the ball a lot with Judkins. I would play Judkins over Hampton this week. We have them both projected for 10 points in PPR. Seth said it earlier too with the Tootin versus Trevion Henderson start sit he was talking through. Tootin is ascending. Trevion Henderson is kind of staying stagnant or maybe even declining. Similar thing here with Judkins and Hampton. Judkins is ascending. Guys, Judkins last week, this is Judkins' floor. Snap percentage-wise, volume-wise, he had 2 practices. Missed in the entire training camp. I think he didn't practice Monday or Tuesday. He practiced like Thursday and Friday. That was it. Friday's like a walkthrough. He still plays 20 snaps, and on those 20 snaps, he gets the ball 13 times, turns that into 71 yards for the Browns against the Ravens last week. I mean, they're going to get the Judkins the ball like as much as they can. I think he could easily get to 20 touches this week. I think his floor is the 13 touches from last week. That should be a reasonable floor to expect, no matter what the game script is. He was at 6.1 yards per carry. This is a legit good prospect. This is a good, talented running back. He was picked 1 pick before Trevion Henderson in the NFL draft, who he had more touches than on the same college team. I mean, like this is a legit running back here in Judkins. I still like Hampton. I still think the ceiling's really high for Hampton. But yeah, I'm going Judkins this week already. Man, such an L for me, fading him in all my best ball drafts. I just was too scared of the risk of 0 all season. Wide receiver and flex. Start 2, Travis Hunter, Marvin Harrison Jr., Harold Fannin. God, this is a tough one. I got some tough ones with Fannin too. I got to decide between Fannin and Trevion Henderson. Not an easy choice, in my opinion. Right now, I got Henderson in there. But man, week after week, I got guests on the live telling me I got to chill with Trevion Henderson. Yeah, you got to bench Harold Fannin here. You play Travis Hunter, you play Marvin Harrison Jr. God, Marv versus Hunter is close. It's really close. I honestly think I lean Marv over Hunter personally. I think there's a bigger ceiling, and Walter Picks does agree with me about the ceiling here with Marv. I think a bigger touchdown ceiling, a bigger like 100+ yard game ceiling for Marv than Travis Hunter right now. I don't need to force 2 tight ends either. That's part of my issue with Fannin versus a guy like Trevion Henderson. I just don't like forcing 2 tight ends. Tight ends just historically a lower scoring position than running back and receiver, even though I do like Fannin today in the role that he could play. Henderson versus Scadabo. Yeah, I don't know how you start Henderson over Scadabo. I don't know how you start him over Scadabo. Scadabo is clearly going to get the ball more than Henderson. There's a tough, like we have Henderson ranked just ahead of Ramondre Stevenson. Like Ramondre's clearly going to get the ball more than Trevion Henderson. You're really banking on like a big play from Henderson. And he's very capable of that. I would not be shocked at all when we see Henderson rip an 80-yard touchdown play at some point soon this season. Could be against this slow Steelers defense that he should be able to exploit. But yeah, Scadabo's the volume's there. He looked pretty good. It's a tough matchup versus the Chiefs, but like it wouldn't be shocking to see Scadabo double the touches for Henderson. So yeah, you kind of have to go. About to take off. Need it now. I got you, Jason. Connor, Dobbins, Pickens, and T. Pick 3. Yeah, bench James Conner. Play Dobbins, play Pickens, play T. And then in non-PPR, play the running back. In non-PPR, play the running back. Go Scadabo over Ridley and Egbuka. Hey, Sam, Walter has Dak and Goff close. Who should I play? I lean Dak over Goff. Personally, I think there's a world where the Lions are able to run against the Ravens, and there's just like no world where the Cowboys are throwing the ball. It's just a ton every single week. Their defense is awful. How many pass attempts did Dak have last week? He had 52 pass attempts last week versus the Giants. Now he's playing the defense that ranks dead last versus quarterbacks. He leads the NFL in completions. Man, I think we have Goff ahead of. No, we have Dak ahead of Goff. Yeah, I'm going Dak over Goff. Close one though, for sure. Both really good game environments there. And pick one, please. Genty, Garrett, Terry, ETN. Love the app, man. Let's have a day. Let's have a great day. It is a great day to have a great day here in week 3. Genty, Garrett. God, how do we start Garrett Wilson? Genty's definitely the panic meter is high for Genty for most people. It's not as high for me. This is a tough ETN question here too. Terry projects the best. Garrett Wilson projects the worst. Let's take Garrett Wilson out. Let's put ETN in. I think ETN projects even worse than Garrett Wilson, but I definitely think he can be considered in this start sit. Oh, gosh, McLaurin projecting the best is pretty rough here. I think I would go Genty here. To me, I would probably go Genty and ETN over McLaurin. With the backup QB for McLaurin, I said my favorite prop in that game was 3.5 receptions for McLaurin. I still stand by that. This feels really low for him. I won't be surprised if he has a good game. And I'm willing to kind of throw out week 1 for him since he missed all of training camp. But yeah, I think I would go Genty than ETN here. Kraft or Ertz? I'm going Ertz over Kraft. Just the knee injury stuff scares me with Kraft. I'd rather wait and see on what the knee injury impact is going to be, especially this week. Like, it's really hard to expect Kraft to be that 90% snap percentage role here this week. So yeah, I'm going Ertz over Kraft. Keenan, Trey Benson, Tootin, Bill, Travis Hunter. Yeah, it's Keenan. It's Keenan there. Keenan over Hunter. I do like Tootin a lot, but I would play Keenan over him. Duke, man, how we doing? Good to see you back in the live stream. Day, good to see you as well. Hollywood, London, Ridley, pick one. Yeah, this one's got to be London. Sam the man, start 2. PPR, Judy, Devontae, Pittman, Keenan, Monty, and Wandale. This is the first Devontae Smith question I've seen, and we are over 3 hours into the live. I have faith in the Eagles having to throw more today. I really do. And the Walter Picks app does not, by the way. The Walter Picks app is really projecting low volume here in the passing game. The Walter Picks projections team, really outside of me, is very pessimistic that the Eagles will have to throw more in future games than they have had to throw. A historically low pass volume rate so far. I think it's Devontae and Pittman here. Devontae versus Keenan's close. I bet Seth would have said Keenan over Devontae. I would go Devontae over Keenan personally. Monty's not bad either as a floor play, but yeah, PPR, I probably prefer these receivers. What's up, Sam? Been a minute. How we doing, Day? Good to see you back in the live, man. Hope all is well. Pickens, Sutton, Judy. I think I'd rank these guys as Sutton, then Pickens, then Judy. We got Judy projected better than Pickens in the Walter Picks app, but to me, the ceiling's higher for Pickens, and Judy might not get many targets if the pressure is really, really strong for the Packers against the Browns, which it probably will be. It probably will be. So yeah, I actually like Pickens more than Judy, personally. And I'd play Sutton over both these guys. I do think Sutton bounces back this week versus the Chargers. Judy projects the best. Wow, yeah. I'm benching Judy here. I would disagree and bench with Judy here. Wandale Robinson or Olave? I'm going Olave, man. I cannot get around the Wandale Robinson hype. I just can't. Still picking Keenan considering I have Hampton and Ladd playing against Herbert. Oh, yes. Does make it a little bit worse, I think, but I still think you go Keenan. I still think you go with the best option. I'm playing Devontae Smith over Imanor. Yep, 100%. Imanor is not a start. He's just a good stash, in my opinion. Sam, please lock in for me. Josh Jacobs, Swift, or Keenan at flex PPR. Yeah, I get the Josh Jacobs fear. I really do. I get it. You got to start him here, I think. I'm definitely playing Jacobs over Swift, like pretty comfortably, even though the matchup's better for Swift. The Keenan one's tough. It's close. Yeah, it's Jacobs. You got to play Jacobs. He still has a good chance at a touchdown. I know Derrick Henry just got stuffed by the Browns. Derrick Henry had less than 4 points last week versus the Browns, but I still think you got to play the role with Jacobs. How you doing, Sam? Pickens or T, PPR, please. I am doing great, man. It is the best day of the week. We are less than 30 minutes from TV on our football screens. There we go. We're at 3 hours plus in the live football on our TV screens. Man, all right, let's lock in for this. Pickens and T. Wow, these guys are back-to-back in the ranks here. We had Seth, his departing bold take on the live stream today. was that the Bengals offense is going to be just fine. They're going to still perform pretty well, like just as well, basically, with Jake Browning. If you're buying into that, you got to go T. The matchup's better for Pickens, though. The matchup's way better for Pickens. Pickens is catching passes from Dak, not a backup uncertain QB. I'm going Pickens. I'm going Pickens over T. Higgins. I really do think the ceiling for Pickens is extremely high, and our projection here is a little pessimistic to me on George Pickens. Wandale or Hollywood Brown. That's the night game, both in the night game. Yeah, I'd probably go Hollywood Brown over Wandale. I think Wandale projects maybe a bit better. About to go 0-3, need to turn it around. Yeah, this is the time of fantasy season. You got to lock in and turn it around. We got enough data now, enough waiver wire moves now. You got to start turning out wins and get into the playoffs soon. Then you can start optimizing for the playoffs way before your league. That's what it's all about, man. Mike Evans, Pearsall on the flex. We're not benching Pearsall this week. You cannot bench Pearsall this week. With Jennings out, Kittle out, Ayuk out, his floor is just so high, and the ceiling's really high too. Good afternoon, Zach, ETN, Ridley, Mason, or Ken Walker in a PPR league. We cannot bench Mason. We cannot bench Kenneth Walker this week. You absolutely can't do it. You can't do it. And these are the two pivotal pieces of DFS too. You know, I got the DraftKings lineup. I'm going Mason over Kenneth in the DFS lineup. I think he's a bit cheaper. But yeah, I'm going with the Dak Prescott stack, double stack with the bring back in a Dunze, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, the Dunze bring back. Honestly, I think there's 300 of salary left in this lineup. I might look to pivot off Calvin Ridley after that conversation with Seth and look to go somewhere else in the flex here. All right, I got time for a couple more start hits here on the YouTube live. Hey, should I start a Dunze? Yes, start a Dunze. End of question. I didn't even know. You really need to know the rest of the players here. So you're starting a Dunze against the Cowboys. Judy, Marv, or Wandale, full PPR. To me, I'm going Marv here over Judy. I'd go Marv, then Judy, then Wandale. Sam, love what you do. Thanks, man. Tight end question since Kittle is out. Jake Ferg or Jawan? Yeah, Dimitri, appreciate you, man. And this is a tough one. This is a really tough one. Jawan versus Ferg. They're 2 spots apart. I think it's Jawan. I think it's Jawan Johnson. And we got the ceiling higher for Jake Ferguson here, technically. He's coming off a really good game. But the role for Jawan Johnson's no joke, man. It is really no joke. He's playing every single snap. He's running around basically every single passing play. He has 20 targets this season. And he's on a team that's like top of the NFL in pace. There's not many teams running more plays than the Saints. And they're trailing in every game. So yeah, I like Jawan. I think you got to start Jawan in like most spots. Unless you have Tyler Warren, Kelsey, McBride, Bowers, I'm going Jawan. Like the fact that he ranks ahead of Laporta even in that matchup is kind of crazy. Sam Darnold or Kyler Murray? I think I'd go Kyler over Sam Darnold. Might be a crazy question, but Keenan or Mike Evans? You got to go Mike Evans. Yeah, it is a bit crazy, I think. Tet or Jacoby? This is a tough one. Jacoby projects better. Jacoby is like a hard guy to bench. He's like a sneakily hard guy to bench. He hasn't had a bad game. And Tet's not an easy guy to bench either. I don't think he's scored yet. Yeah, he hasn't scored yet. He's 10th in catches in the NFL. He's 9th in receiving yards. He's averaging 82.5 receiving yards per game, Jacoby Myers. He doesn't have a game under 65 yards. He projects for 71 receiving yards and 55.5 catches. But Tet's been good too. And he's coming off a 100-yard game. And AJ Terrell is out. Man, I think you go Jacoby, but I would not knock you for going Tet. I'd lean Jacoby with the app here. Would not knock you for going Tet at all. Really close one. I think I agree with the app. Tet's got a higher ceiling. Jacoby's got the safer floor. Happy Sunday, Sam. Happy Sunday. Happy. Debo or Pearsall? It's Pearsall. We're not benching Pearsall. We cannot bench Pearsall. Pick one. Dobbins, DJ Moore, Swift. Oh, man. DJ Moore's a tough one. I think you got to go DJ Moore here over Swift and Dobbins. It's a tough call. T. Higgins, Keenan, Egbuka, DJ Moore, Diggs. I think you got to go Egbuka and DJ Moore. Let's take a look at this one. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going Egbuka and DJ Moore here over Keenan and over T and over Diggs. Diggs is a tough guy to start right now. I'm playing Pittman here over Kirk and Shaheed. I want nothing to do with Christian Kirk here in his first game. DJ Moore, McMillan, or Pearsall. I think you bench DJ Moore here, Devin. You played McMillan and Pearsall. I don't want to bench Herbert. I really don't want to bench Herbert right now. They're leading the NFL in pass rate over expectation. We just saw Daniel Jones go over 300 passing yards versus the Broncos. Why can't Herbert? Caleb Williams is in a really good matchup here, but Herbert's playing like an MVP. Yeah, I'm going Herbert. Yeah, over Caleb Williams. Devontae Smith, Travis Hunter, or Booty. Yeah, Billy, Booty had one catch last week for a touchdown, a good touchdown. But pretty surprising he only had one target, one catch last week, I believe. So yeah, it's Devontae Smith for me here. I still have some faith that the Eagles will be pushing this game. The Rams pushed them in the playoffs, and they probably would have won if it wasn't for the snow in that game. I'm going Devontae Smith. Sutton, Judy, ETN, Chubb, Franklin. I'm playing ETN and Sutton over Judy, Chubb, and Franklin. ETN and Sutton. Guys, that is my time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Time, it's really the most valuable thing we have. I seriously appreciate you all spending some time with me today. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We're posting so much content, 3 lives a week on this channel. You know I won't miss a Sunday. Really do appreciate everyone who subscribed to the channel. If I didn't get to your start sit, I do apologize. I'm trying to get to as many as I can. I can't get to them all. That's just the reality. If I didn't get to all of your start sits, go to the Walter Picks app. I've spent the last 5 years of my life helping build this app so that if I don't get to your start sit, there's a really good place to go. That's going to account for all your league settings, all the best research and insights and stats that you can find there. So check out the Walter Picks app. All that's free. And there's a free trial for all the premium features in the app too. If you're interested in that and you're really serious about your league, definitely worth trying out. Link to that's in the YouTube description. Guys, have a great Sunday and good luck. Everybody, I'll see you next week.